The hospital form asked for my emergency contact's relationship to me, and I had been staring at the little blank after family for long enough that the preoperative coordinator offered me a different pen. "This one smears sometimes," she said. "The pen is innocent." She gave me the patient smile of a woman trained not to ask why people behaved strangely before heart surgery. I typed a message to my son. "They need a contact during surgery and someone to hear the discharge instructions. Okay if I put you down?" Nathan's answer came before I could set the phone back on my lap. "Don't list me as family. My wife doesn't want the calls." I read it twice. The second reading did not improve it. Around me, Lakeview Medical Center continued making its tidy little noises. A printer hummed, rubber soles squeaked in the hall. Someone behind the reception desk laughed softly, then remembered where she was and swallowed the rest. I looked at the coordinator. Her badge said, "Alina," and she had silver stars painted on her fingernails. "Can I list someone who isn't related to me?" "Absolutely. A friend, neighbor, anyone you trust. Anyone you trust." That narrowed the field in a way I had not expected at 10:47 on a Tuesday morning. I set the phone face down on the clipboard. "I'm going to need a minute." "Take all the time you need." People said that in hospitals when they meant 7 minutes. Elena left me with the form and disappeared behind a frosted glass door. I turned Nathan's message over in my head as if there might be a less cruel side to it. Maybe he was in a meeting. Maybe Claire had said something practical and he had translated it badly. Maybe he meant not to list him as my primary contact. Maybe his thumb had slipped and accidentally typed an entire sentence. I picked up the phone again. "Do you mean you can't be the primary?" The typing dots appeared, vanished, then returned. "Claire has a major presentation Thursday. We can't have both phones blowing up every time something changes. The doctor said it's routine. Put someone from church." There it was, not a mistake, an explanation. My cardiologist, Dr. Shaw, had used the word routine while showing me a model of a human heart with a removable valve. Dentists called cleanings routine. Mechanics called oil changes routine. "Nobody opened your breastbone for an oil change." I typed understood because it was shorter than everything else I might have said. Elena returned carrying a stack of papers and a clear plastic cup with a screw-on lid. "All set?" "Not remotely, but I'm ready for the cup." That earned a real laugh. She pointed me toward the restroom for the required urine sample, and I carried the cup down the hall like it contained an Olympic flame. In the restroom, I locked the door and sat on the closed toilet without taking off my coat. The room smelled aggressively of lemon. Someone had placed a cheerful decal above the sink that said, "Courage starts here." Apparently, courage started between a diaper disposal bin and a motion sensor soap dispenser. I opened Nathan's message once more. "Don't list me as family. Not don't list me as your contact. Not Thursday is impossible. Not let me call you tonight. Family." I pressed the heel of my hand against my chest. The pressure there was not the valve. I had been told very specifically which symptoms belonged to the valve, and humiliation had not been on the laminated list. My husband, Richard, had been dead 6 years. For the last 14 months of his life, I kept a canvas tote by the front door with his medication list, insurance card, phone charger, clean socks, and 2 oatmeal cookies he was never allowed to eat. Nathan came when he could. That was how I described it then, and how I had continued describing it. He came when he could. He lived 23 minutes away. I finished what the cup required, washed my hands, and returned to Elena's desk. She reviewed the forms until she reached the empty contact section. "You can take this one home and call us with the information," she said quietly. "No. If I take it home, it'll sit on my kitchen counter and judge me. Forms are very judgmental. Especially medical forms. Tax forms at least pretend it's only about money." She slid the page back to me. "Do you have someone in mind?" I thought of my church directory, which was presumably Nathan's plan. I could select a name between Alter Guild and Volunteer Landscaping and invite that person to hear whether I survived Thursday. There was Bonnie from my book group, but Bonnie fainted during a discussion of a fictional appendectomy. There was my next-door neighbor, Gary, who was kind but believed every emergency could be solved with jumper cables. There was my cousin Evelyn in Arizona, who would come if I asked and remind me hourly that she had come from Arizona. Then I thought of Leona Price. I had not seen Leona in 4 months. She had invited me to lunch twice. The first time, I canceled because Nathan needed someone to wait at his house for a furnace technician. The second time, I canceled because Claire had ordered patio furniture, and Nathan was worried it would be delivered while they were away. Leona had texted afterward, "Margaret, do you ever notice that every emergency in Nathan's life has a 4-hour delivery window?" I had been offended for nearly a week, mostly because it was funny. I wrote Leona's name in the blank, then stopped before adding her number. "I need to ask her." "That would be best," Elena said. "I know her number by heart. Still best to ask." There was no judgment in her voice, which made me feel more judged than if she had rolled her eyes. She moved on to the discharge requirements. I would not be allowed to drive. I should not stay alone the first several nights. I could not lift more than 10 pounds, reach overhead, soak the incision, or make major decisions while taking pain medication. What counts as a major decision? Anything involving money, legal paperwork, or your future. So I can decide what to watch on television? With caution. I appreciate the responsibility. She smiled, but her eyes stayed on me. "Mrs. Hale, who is taking you home?" "My son." I said it automatically. Elena glanced at the empty form. "I'm revising that answer," I said. Outside, the November wind slapped the hospital doors open before I reached them. I stood beneath the awning buttoning my coat, watching cars creep through the drop-off lane. A man in blue scrubs jogged after a rolling coffee cup. A woman leaned across the passenger seat to kiss someone goodbye. All those ordinary acts of being expected somewhere seemed suddenly theatrical. My sedan was on the 4th level of the parking garage. Halfway up the ramp, I had to stop and pretend to study a sign about payment methods while my heart beat too hard. That was the valve, or the stairs, or the sentence on my phone. At home, Nathan's camping equipment occupied one entire side of my garage. He and Claire did not have room, they had explained, though their house had 3 bedrooms and a basement. I parked carefully beside 2 coolers, a folded canopy, 4 sleeping bags, and a plastic tub labeled "Outdoor Cookware" in Claire's neat block printing. I sat behind the wheel after turning off the engine. Nathan had always been good at leaving things with me, his equipment, his spare keys, his complaints about Claire, his guilt about not seeing me enough. He dropped each one off and collected it when convenient, usually lighter than when he arrived. Inside, the kitchen clock said noon. I put the hospital folder on the counter and filled the kettle. My house was too quiet, but that was not new. The new part was noticing. A photograph of Nathan and Claire stood beside the fruit bowl. It had been taken the previous Thanksgiving. Claire looked beautiful in dark green, one hand resting lightly on Nathan's chest. Nathan was smiling towards someone outside the frame. I knew it was me because I had been holding a carving knife and telling him to stop stealing pieces of turkey skin. I turned the photograph face down. Then I turned it upright again because, even alone, I did not want to look dramatic. My phone rang while the kettle heated. Nathan. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hey, Mom." His voice was careful now. He had reread his message. "Hello, Nathan. Are you still at the hospital?" "No. How'd everything go?" "They collected blood, urine, and most of my dignity. Very thorough." He exhaled through his nose. That was how Nathan laughed when he did not want to encourage me. "Listen, about the contact thing, yes? Claire's under a lot of pressure right now." There were many possible things to say. I chose the one that gave him the most room to surprise me. I didn't ask about Claire. A silence opened between us. "I'm just explaining why Thursday's bad. My surgery is Thursday because that's when they scheduled it. I know that. I didn't pick it to interfere with her presentation. Nobody said you did. You said the doctor called it routine. It is, isn't it? They routinely replace heart valves. I have only one. Mom. That one word arrived tired and irritated, as if I had begun making trouble before he could finish being reasonable. He softened his voice. I'm not saying I don't care. Obviously I care. But Claire thinks hospitals over-communicate. Every little update turns into another call. Then somebody has to sit there all day when there's nothing they can do. Somebody. You know what I mean. I'm finding that I don't. The kettle clicked off. I watched the steam fade from its spout. Nathan lowered his voice. You have people at church. You have neighbors. You've always had a whole circle. He said it almost accusingly, as though I had kept spare sons hidden around town. The form asks for someone who can take me home and stay with me. I thought they only needed a phone number. They need a person attached to it. Another silence. What about that woman you used to work with? He asked. The funny one. Leona. Right. You two are close. We had been before I began canceling on her for furnace technicians and patio furniture. I'll handle it, I said. Okay, good. The relief in his voice was immediate. That hurt more than the message. Then, because he was my son and contradictions were apparently hereditary, he asked, Do you need me to bring anything by before Thursday? I looked around my kitchen. On the table sat the ceramic casserole dish he had returned last week after keeping it since Easter. He had left it dirty inside a grocery bag because, he said, baked cheese needed my special touch. No, I said. I have everything you left here. He missed the meaning. Great. Call me after, okay? I almost laughed. You don't want the calls. I meant when you're up to it. Of course. We said goodbye like two people ending a perfectly ordinary conversation. I poured hot water over a tea bag and stood there until the tea went dark and bitter. Then I carried it to the kitchen table, opened my contacts, and found Leona's name. My thumb hovered over the call button. Leona had sat beside me at Richard's funeral and whispered that if one more person told me he was in a better place, she was going to ask for the address. She had known when to bring food and when to bring gossip. She had also stopped chasing me after I made it clear, one cancellation at a time, that Nathan's conveniences outranked her friendship. Asking her now felt less like requesting help than presenting an invoice for a debt she did not owe. I called anyway. She answered on the 5th ring. If this is about patio furniture, she said, I've taken a moral position against chairs. It isn't. Something in my voice changed hers. What happened? I need a favor. How bad? Open heart surgery bad. There was a pause, followed by a sharp clatter. What did you drop? My sandwich. When? Thursday. This Thursday? Yes. And you're telling me on Tuesday? I was going to manage it. With what? Optimism and a bath towel? Despite myself, I smiled. I need someone the hospital can call. Where's Nathan? I looked at the photograph beside the fruit bowl. His face was still turned toward me, smiling at the woman he believed would always be standing just outside the frame. He asked me not to list him as family. Leona went completely quiet. Then she said, Tell me exactly what he wrote. I did. When I finished, she drew in a slow breath. All right, she said. Put down my number. Leona put it down. I'll take you. I'll wait, and you'll stay here afterward. You don't have to do all that, I know. I can hire somebody. You may need to. I'm not 25, and neither are you, no matter what that blouse with the silver buttons claims. It's a good blouse. It is an ambitious blouse. I covered my eyes with one hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I have one condition. I waited. When you walk into that hospital, you do not tell one nurse, one doctor, or one janitor that you're sorry for being trouble. You need care, Margaret. That is not the same thing as causing trouble. I stared at the blank relationship line on the form. What should I put where it asks who you are? Leona did not answer immediately. Finally, she said, Right, friend. We'll see if you remember what that means. I can still hear you thinking, Leona said. I'm not thinking. You're figuring out how to make the request smaller. She knew me too well for someone I had barely managed to see since summer. I was only going to ask if you were sure. I'm sure. Now read me the instructions. I opened the hospital folder. The papers were arranged in cheerful colors, as if the difficulty had been finding a sufficiently upbeat shade for open-heart surgery. I read the arrival time, the medication restrictions, the shower requirements, and the sentence stating that I could not be released to a taxi or ride service. What time do I pick you up? Leona asked. 5:15 in the morning? No, I thought we'd arrive 12 hours late and see if they're flexible. Good. Your sarcasm survived the diagnosis. She made me promise not to eat after midnight Wednesday, as though I had planned to sneak into the pantry and swallow a ham. Then she said she was coming over. You don't need to come tonight. Do you have clean sheets on your guest bed? They're clean enough. That is a no-wearing lipstick. I'm not wearing lipstick. Then it's a very serious no. She hung up before I could stop her. 40 minutes later, headlights swept across my front window. Leona came through the door carrying a canvas grocery bag and wearing a purple wool coat that made her look like a wealthy widow in a mystery novel. Her gray hair was cut in a blunt bob, and her glasses hung from a chain she claimed was practical, and I claimed made her look like she charged by the hour. She set the bag on my counter. What's in there? I asked. Soup, crackers, applesauce, and a bell. A bell? For when you need something. I have a phone. The bell will be more satisfying. She took out a brass handbell with a wooden handle and rang it once. The sound was loud enough to frighten the refrigerator. If you use that every time you want water, I may smother you with a decorative pillow, she said. I'll write that in the care plan. Leona removed her coat and noticed the hospital folder on the kitchen table. Beside it sat the cup of tea I had forgotten to drink and the photograph of Nathan and Claire. You talked to him again, she said. How do you know? You get a line between your eyebrows when you've defended that man. I didn't defend him. That's new, he called to explain. Did the explanation help? I moved the tea to the sink. No. Leona did not ask for details. She opened my refrigerator, inspected its contents, and held up a jar of olives as if presenting evidence. This is not food, they're stuffed. With pimentos, not vitamins. I have eggs. You have one egg. It's a very capable egg. She put the olives back and began listing what I would need after surgery. Extra pillows, button-front shirts, a thermometer, a basket for medication, something called a wedge cushion, which sounded like furniture for a yacht. You sound alarmingly prepared, I said. I looked it up before I came. That silenced me. Nathan had known about the operation for 3 weeks. When I told him, we were standing in my driveway beside his camping canopy. He had hugged me and said, "You'll be fine, Mom." I had taken the sentence as reassurance instead of noticing it was also the end of the conversation. Leona pulled out a chair. Sit. It's my house. And yet the chair remains mine to command. I sat. She opened the folder and read every page, not skimmed, read. Her mouth tightened at the description of the incision. I thought they could do these through the groin now, she said. Not mine. Why? Something about the shape of the valve and where the calcium is. Something? He showed me pictures. I stopped absorbing details after the words sternum and saw. Leona lowered the paper. Margaret. I know what they're doing. I just don't enjoy the woodworking vocabulary. What did Shaw say about risk? The usual things. There are no usual things when they're sawing you. I looked toward the dark kitchen window. My reflection floated there. 69 years old and still apparently surprised that a body could betray the woman living in it. He said, I'm otherwise healthy, I said. He thinks I'll do well. Thinks? That's what doctors say when they can't promise. Leona reached across the table and put her hand over mine. She had wide palms and short, unpainted nails. Richard used to say Leona had the hands of someone who could deliver a calf or repair an engine. She had never done either, but she accepted the compliment. "I'm scared," I said. It came out so quietly I almost hoped she had not heard it. She squeezed my hand. "I know." The relief was immediate and humiliating. I turned my face away. "Don't make me cry. I have to conserve fluids. That isn't how fluids work. You've been retired too long to boss people. I've been waiting years to boss you without human resources interfering." She kept her hand over mine until I looked back. Then she asked the question I had been avoiding. "What happens after I bring you home?" "I stay with you." "For how long?" "A few days. The paper says you may need help for several weeks. I can manage after the first few days. With your third arm?" "I'll be able to walk. You won't be able to drive, lift groceries, reach high shelves, or sleep flat. You're going to need more than me." My back starts composing resignation letters when I carry laundry. I hated that she was right. Depending on one person was bad enough. Depending on several felt like becoming a community project. "There are recovery aids," I said. Elena gave me a list. "Good. They're expensive." "Also good. Expensive people are less likely to wander off with your olives." The money I had saved was in a separate account labeled travel. Nathan had begun sending links to rental houses along the North Carolina coast in August. Nothing had been booked, but he had mentioned how nice it would be to get away together and how hard it was for him and Claire to save with their house repairs. I had known what he was asking without forcing him to ask. Leona saw me look toward the cabinet where I kept my checkbook. "What?" she said. "Nothing." There's that word again. I was saving for a trip. "Then you're taking one." "From the hospital to my guest room. That isn't exactly the coast. I can scatter sand on the bathroom floor." I laughed, then felt disloyal for it. The next morning, I called the first agency on Elena's list. A woman named Donna asked questions in a brisk, friendly voice. Did I have stairs? A shower chair? Pets? Memory problems? "Not that I remember," I said. She paused, then laughed professionally. "We arranged for an aide to come 4 hours a day beginning the week after surgery, with the option to add more." When Donna told me the hourly rate, I wrote it on the back of an envelope and stared at the number. "Would you like time to think?" she asked. No one had needed to hire help for Richard because I had been there. I had learned which pills made him sick, how to clean his drainage tubes, how to guide him out of bed without pulling his shoulder. Nathan had visited, brought coffee, and once repaired a loose toilet handle. For years afterward, I had praised him for that handle. "No," I said. "Let's schedule it." After the call, I transferred money from travel into my checking account. The bank app asked if I was sure. Even the bank thought I was behaving unusually. "At 11, Nathan texted. "Found someone?" I answered. "Yes." "Who?" "Leona." A thumbs up appeared. Then, "Knew she'd come through." I looked at that sentence until my screen dimmed. He sounded proud of himself for remembering her name. He stopped by that afternoon with a phone charger and a stainless steel travel mug. The charger was the wrong kind, and the travel mug said, "World's okayest boss." He had won it at an office party. "Thought you could use these," he said. "Thank you." He stood in my kitchen wearing a quilted vest over a pale blue shirt. Nathan had Richard's dark eyebrows, and my habit of rubbing one thumb over the other when uncomfortable. He did it now while studying the papers on the table. "So Leona's taking you?" "Yes." "And staying at the hospital?" "That's what the contact person does." "Right." He picked up the envelope with the aide's rate written on it. "What's this?" I took it from him and turned it face down. "Something I arranged." He nodded, chastened for half a second. Then his gaze shifted toward the refrigerator. "You have anything to eat?" "There's one very capable egg." "What?" "Nothing." I made him a turkey sandwich. Habit moved faster than anger. I spread mustard the way he liked it, thin at the edges, and cut the sandwich diagonally. He ate standing at the counter. "Claire would have come," he said after a while, "but she's rehearsing." "Of course." "She feels bad about the timing. The hospital and I will try to be more considerate next time." He put down the sandwich. "I don't want to fight before your surgery. Neither do I. You're making everything I say sound terrible. I'm repeating it." His mouth tightened. For an instant, he looked 12 years old and furious that I had found the broken lamp behind the couch. Then his face returned to 41. He brushed crumbs from his fingers. I should go, probably. At the door, he hugged me. It was not a casual hug. His arms tightened around my shoulders and his breath caught near my ear. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. I wanted to tell him I could not promise that. I wanted to ask him to come Thursday despite the message, despite Claire, despite everything. Instead, I patted his back. "So everyone keeps saying." He left without finishing the sandwich. At 5:15 the next morning, Leona pulled into my driveway wearing the purple coat over plaid pajamas. "You said to be ready," I told her. "I'm ready. I'm also 72, and pants with buttons before sunrise violate my beliefs." The hospital looked different in darkness. Too bright inside, too black beyond the windows. At registration, a clerk slid the contact form toward me. I filled in Leona's number. Under relationship, I wrote friend. Leona read it upside down and said nothing. A nurse fastened a plastic band around my wrist, took my clothes, and put my belongings into a clear bag. My phone went on top. There were no new messages. Leona sat beside the bed while people introduced themselves and marked things and checked things and asked me to state my name. Just before they came to take me away, she removed her glasses and leaned close. "You are allowed to be scared," she said. "I'm considering it. And you are not trouble." I looked past her at the clear bag holding my phone. "No," I said, though my voice shook. Apparently, I'm routine. The orderly unlocked the wheels. Leona took my hand until the bed began to move, and even after we lost our grip, she walked beside me all the way to the double doors. The double doors opened onto a corridor colder than the one behind us. "I object to this temperature," I told the orderly. "It keeps us alert. It's keeping parts of me alert that have no role in the procedure." He laughed and steered the bed around a corner. Above me, ceiling tiles passed in a steady procession. Every fourth panel held a fluorescent light. I began counting them because numbers were easier than imagining what would happen when we reached the room at the end. At 17, we stopped. The operating room was larger than I expected and crowded with equipment that seemed to have arrived before the people had decided what it was for. Stainless steel trays stood beneath blue covers. A monitor displayed lines with no patient attached. In the center waited a narrow table with padded arms extending from either side. A young man in a paper cap introduced himself as the anesthesiologist, Dr. Leland. He had already introduced himself once, but I appreciated the second attempt because I had forgotten everything except that he controlled whether I remained conscious while Dr. Shaw approached my chest with tools. "We're going to move you over," he said. "I was afraid you'd ask me to walk. We try to preserve some dignity. You took my underwear 20 minutes ago." Some dignity. 3 people shifted me from the bed to the table. They moved with practiced kindness, which was not the same as tenderness, but felt close enough. Dr. Shaw appeared above me. He was a compact man with calm brown eyes and a voice that never hurried, even when he was late. A blue cap covered the hair he usually combed too carefully. "How are you feeling, Margaret?" I've reconsidered. "Unfortunately, your valve hasn't. That seems selfish of it." He rested his hand briefly on my forearm. "We're going to take good care of you." People had been saying that all morning, but Dr. Shaw's version made me believe it for almost 5 seconds. Dr. Leland told me he was giving me something to relax. I felt warmth move into my arm. "Think of somewhere you'd like to be," he said. My mind offered Richard standing at the kitchen counter, eating turkey skin while I pretended not to see him. Then it offered Nathan at 6 years old, asleep in the back seat with one sneaker missing. Then Nathan at 41, leaving half a sandwich on my plate. I rejected them all and pictured Leona in plaid pajamas under her purple coat. The room tilted. Someone asked me to take a deep breath. I tried. Then the world became noise. A machine beeped beside me in a rhythm too sharp to ignore. There was pressure in my throat, something hard where nothing should have been, and a voice saying, "Margaret, don't pull at that." My hands would not move, neither would my mouth. "You're in intensive care. Your surgery is over." The words reached me separately. Intensive, care, surgery, over. I opened my eyes, or believed I did. Light spread without shape. A figure leaned over me wearing a mask. I could not breathe correctly. Panic rose inside me, huge and immediate. "Let the ventilator help you. You're safe." I did not feel safe. I felt buried under my own body. I tried to ask for Nathan. The tube turned the name into pain. A hand closed around mine. "I'm here," a woman said. For one confused second, I thought the voice belonged to my mother. Then the blur sharpened enough for me to see silver hair, black glasses, and a purple sleeve beneath a hospital gown. Leona. She bent near my ear. "Stop fighting the tube. They're taking it out as soon as you're ready." I wanted to ask how long she had been there. I wanted to ask why Nathan was not. I wanted to tell her my chest felt as if someone had parked a car on it. Instead, I held her fingers and let the machine breathe for me. I drifted. People appeared, touched me, vanished. I heard words like pressure and rhythm. Once someone said pacing wires. Another time I heard Dr. Shaw's voice near the foot of the bed. She had a difficult stretch coming off bypass. The sentence floated above me. "Is she all right?" Leona asked. "She's stable." Stable was another hospital word that sounded better than it was. "There was an arrhythmia," he said. "We kept her sedated while we managed it. Her heart is responding well now. How long was she supposed to be asleep?" "A few hours less than this." I tried to open my eyes and let them know I could hear. The effort exhausted me. Later, a nurse named Dana removed the breathing tube. She warned me before it happened, which did nothing to prepare me. My body convulsed around the absence it left. I coughed and immediately discovered that coughing after open-heart surgery was an activity designed by an enemy. Dana pressed a folded pillow against my chest. "Hug this. I just met it," I whispered. "What was that?" I tried again. My voice sounded scraped hollow. I said, "We're moving too fast." Dana smiled. "The pillow doesn't mind." She gave me a damp sponge for my mouth. It was the best thing I had ever tasted, including chocolate. Leona stood on the other side of the bed, still in the same coat and pajamas. Her hair had lost its shape. "You look terrible," I told her. Her eyes filled so quickly that she had to look down. "That's rich. What time is it?" "Almost 8. In the morning?" "At night." I stared at her. "The surgery took longer," she said. "Then your heart decided to improvise. Always wanted to be musical. You scared 10 years off me. You can't spare them. I know, I'm billing you." My eyes moved toward the chair, then the window, then the doorway. Nathan was not there. I did not know why I expected him. Instinct had apparently survived where dignity had not. "Did they call him?" I asked. The whisper barely carried. Leona leaned closer. "No, they called me." I closed my eyes. I had written her name. I had made the choice. Still, some foolish part of me had expected the hospital to discover a secret line on the form that said actual family and use it when things became frightening enough. "Do you want me to call him?" she asked. I thought of his message. I thought of Claire's presentation, whatever time it had been, her slides moving neatly from problem to solution while my heart forgot its rhythm. No. Leona did not say good. She only pulled the blanket higher over my shoulder. The first night arrived in pieces. Every time I slept, someone woke me to check a number, draw blood, ask my name, or encourage me to breathe into a plastic device that looked like a toy for a very dull child. "Again," Dana said. "I did it. You got the marker halfway. I'm an underachiever." Again. By morning, Dana and I had become enemies with mutual respect. Dr. Shaw visited shortly after 6. He told me the new valve was working well. The arrhythmia had settled, though they would continue monitoring it. If everything remained steady, I might leave intensive care later that day. "You gave us some excitement," he said. "I specifically asked for routine. You surgeons always add upgrades." His smile faded gently. "You did well, Margaret. Leona said I scared 10 years off her." Leona asked questions that scared 10 years off the residents. From the chair, Leona lifted her coffee in acknowledgement. She had gone home at some point to change. She now wore black slacks and a red sweater, though the purple coat lay folded over the back of her chair like an animal keeping watch. My phone was still locked with my other belongings. I asked for it after breakfast. The nurse brought me the clear plastic bag, and Leona helped me hold the phone because lifting it felt absurdly difficult. There were 3 messages. One from the pharmacy saying a prescription was ready. One from Bonnie in book group asking whether I had finished the novel. One from Nathan sent at 6:11 the previous evening. "Hope everything went smoothly. Call when you're awake." I was awake. I turned the screen off. "He thinks it went smoothly," I said. "He hasn't asked anyone. He doesn't have anyone to ask. He has your number." I looked at the black screen. If I called, I would have to make my voice sound stronger so he would not worry. I would tell him the complication had been brief. I would say Leona was taking good care of me. By the end of the conversation, I would somehow be reassuring him that he had made the right choice. I put the phone back in the bag. Not yet. Leona nodded. The day narrowed to tiny humiliations. A nurse helped me wash my face. A physical therapist named Marcus stood me beside the bed, while tubes hung from places I preferred not to consider. My legs shook after 3 steps. "Excellent," Marcus said. "That word has lost all meaning. You stood up. I used to do that for free." He guided me to the chair. Leona watched without hovering, which I knew cost her effort. By afternoon, they moved me to a cardiac recovery room. It had a real door, a view of the parking structure, and a reclining chair Leona declared had been engineered by someone with no skeleton. She opened the canvas grocery bag she had brought from my house. "I found your robe, your glasses, and your lip balm." "Bless you. I also found 3 frozen lasagnas. Nathan likes lasagna. You're having heart surgery, and your freezer is stocked for his appetite. He comes by on Sundays sometimes." "Sometimes?" I rubbed lip balm over my cracked mouth. "He gets busy." Leona sat down heavily. "Margaret, I'm going to say something, and you can blame it on sleep deprivation. That sounds promising." He did not misunderstand the form. "You understand that, don't you?" I looked toward the window. He didn't know there would be a complication. He didn't want to know. The words landed harder than they should have. I turned my face away. "Please don't." "All right." She picked up a magazine and pretended to read. I pretended to sleep. That evening, Nathan sent another message. "How are you feeling?" I wrote, "Sore but stable." His reply came a minute later. "Glad it's done. Rest up. Love you." I stared at "love you" until the letters blurred. Love was apparently willing to text. It simply did not want the calls. I placed the phone face down on the tray. The next morning, Leona arrived carrying my bell, although the hospital had provided a call button. "This has personality," she said, setting it beside my water cup. "You brought it through security?" I told them it was medical equipment. She was arranging applesauce containers in the bedside drawer when voices sounded in the hall. One belonged to a nurse. The other was sharper, breathless, and unmistakable. "What do you mean she had a complication?" Leona's hand stopped inside the drawer. My body reacted before my mind did. The monitor beside me quickened its complaint. Nathan appeared in the doorway with his coat unzipped and my garage key clenched in his hand. He looked at the wires on my chest, the oxygen beneath my nose, and Leona standing beside my bed. Then he looked at me as if I were the one who had disappeared. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Nathan's eyes traveled from the monitor to the bruises on my arms, then down to the clear drainage tube disappearing beneath my blanket. He looked pale, not theatrical pale, the kind that starts around the mouth. "What happened?" he asked. My throat felt too dry to answer. The nurse beside him stepped into the room. Mrs. Hale had an arrhythmia after surgery. It resolved, and she's doing well now. She's on oxygen. Only a small amount. Why is she still hooked up to all this? We monitor cardiac patients closely. Nathan looked at me. Why didn't anybody call me? The monitor sped up again. The nurse glanced at its screen. Let's keep things calm. I am calm. He was not. Nathan had Richard's habit of getting quieter as his anger rose, as though volume were the only evidence a person could be unreasonable. The nurse checked a number, adjusted the clip on my finger, and asked me to take a slow breath. When she was satisfied, she turned to Nathan. "Are you family?" The question seemed to strike him physically. "He's my son," I said. My voice was still thin, but it carried. "He isn't my contact." Leona closed the drawer. Nathan's face hardened. "Can we have a minute?" The nurse looked at me. Not him. I nodded. "I'll be right outside," she said. Leona picked up her purse. "You can stay," I told her. Nathan stared at me. "Mom, she can stay." Leona settled back into the chair without any sign of victory. That somehow made Nathan angrier. He came closer to the bed, still holding my garage key. The yellow plastic tag I had attached to it years ago stuck out between his fingers. "I went to get the canopy," he said. "Gary saw me in the driveway and asked why I wasn't at the hospital. Gary's approach to confidentiality had always been neighborly, rather than medical. I told him your surgery was yesterday," Nathan continued. "He said you weren't home. I called the main desk and they told me you were still admitted. You knew I would be admitted. I didn't know you were in intensive care. I'm not now. That is not the point." "No," I agreed, "it isn't." His gaze snapped toward Leona. "You couldn't call me?" Leona's expression barely changed. "Your mother said no. She was coming out of anesthesia. She said no after she was awake." "And you thought that was reasonable?" "I thought it was her decision. I'm her son." Leona glanced at the key in his hand. "That seems to be today's position." "Leona," I said. She lowered her eyes, but not before Nathan caught the meaning. He pulled the visitor's chair away from the wall. The legs scraped loudly across the floor. "This is unbelievable," he said. "You had a heart complication, and nobody thought I should know." I looked at him. "You specifically asked not to know. I asked not to be listed for routine hospital calls. I didn't say hide an emergency from me. You said not to list you as family. That was obviously not literal. It was unusually specific for something you didn't mean." He dragged one hand over his face. His knuckles were white around my key. Claire had a major presentation. We couldn't be fielding updates all day. Leona made a small sound in her throat. Nathan turned. "Do you have something to say?" "I have several things. Your mother asked me not to." That was not precisely what I had asked, but I was too tired to referee. Nathan looked back at me. "What time did it happen?" "I don't know. Was it during surgery? After?" "After, I think." "You think?" I was unconscious, Nathan. My note-taking suffered. His anger cracked. For one instant, fear showed cleanly on his face. He sat down. "What did Dr. Shaw say?" "That the valve is working, and the arrhythmia. They're watching it. Could it happen again? They watch things because they don't know." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. My garage key dangled between his hands. "Jesus, Mom, I believe he was not on the surgical team. Can you stop joking for 1 minute?" "No." The answer surprised both of us. Humor had always been the cloth I threw over uncomfortable things before Nathan had to look at them. I made jokes when Richard was ill, when bills frightened me, when holiday dinners went wrong. Nathan had learned that if I was funny, I was fine. I was not fine. His eyes moved to the pillow against my chest. "Does it hurt?" "Yes. How much?" "Enough." Why didn't you tell me? I was busy having it. That's not what I mean. I knew. He meant, why had I not protected him from the consequence of his own request? Why had I allowed the worst possibility to become real without giving him a chance to revise himself after the danger arrived? I answered your message, I said. I wrote understood. That could mean anything. It meant I understood. You're punishing me. The sentence lay between us. Leona looked toward the window. I watched Nathan wait for me to deny it. I was being operated on, I said. I didn't have much time to design a punishment. You know what I mean. You wanted me to feel terrible. No, I wanted one person in the waiting room who didn't consider the phone call an imposition. His head jerked back. I had never spoken to him that way. Not because he had never deserved it, but because I had spent 41 years softening every sharp truth before handing it to him. He stood abruptly. Claire didn't mean it like that. I didn't ask Claire. She was worried about the presentation. You wrote the message because I was the one talking to you. You keep saying her name as if she borrowed your thumb. Leona's mouth twitched. She hid it behind her hand. Nathan noticed. I'm glad this is funny. It isn't, Leona said. Then maybe stop treating me like I abandoned her on the side of the road. Leona's voice remained level. I haven't told you how I'm treating you. Enough, I said. The words scraped my chest. I coughed, and pain tore across the incision. I grabbed the pillow. The monitor began sounding again. Nathan moved toward me. Leona was faster, pressing the pillow firmly against my chest. Breathe, she said. The nurse came in, followed by a second one. Nathan backed toward the wall while they checked my heart rate and asked me questions. The room became hands, instructions, and quiet alarms. When it settled, the first nurse turned toward my visitors. She needs rest. I'll stay, Nathan said. My mouth tasted metallic. No. He stared at me. What? I want Leona. The hurt that crossed his face was so immediate that I almost took it back. Almost. He set my garage key on the windowsill. I'll come back later. I need the key, I said. He looked at it, then at me. I'll bring it when I come. Leave it. I'm going to get the camping equipment. Not today. His expression changed again. Confusion first, then insult. I'm already there. I don't want anyone in my house today. Mom, it's a canopy. I know what it is. I've stored it for 4 years. He picked up the key and placed it on my tray table with unnecessary care. Fine. He walked out without saying goodbye. The nurse watched him go, then checked the monitor again. Do you need anything? She asked me. A less eventful heart. I'll put in the request. After she left, Leona returned the bell to the tray. Nathan had knocked it sideways. It gave a small, accidental ring. I shouldn't have said that thing about today's position, she said. No, I'm sorry. It was a little good. It was excellent. That's the problem. I smiled, then stopped because even smiling tugged somewhere unexpected. Leona sat beside me. You all right? No. Good. I'd worry if you said yes. Tears slipped toward my ears before I realized I was crying. Leona reached for a tissue but did not touch my face. She knew I hated having tears wiped for me. He looked scared, I whispered. He was. I could have called. You could have. I wanted him here. I know. Then why didn't I call? Leona folded the tissue into a square. Because wanting him wasn't the only thing that mattered. That answer did not comfort me, which was how I knew it was honest. Nathan did not return that afternoon. At 6, a dietary aide delivered chicken that had been cooked until it no longer remembered being chicken. Leona went downstairs for coffee and came back with a contraband blueberry muffin hidden in her purse. My phone stayed silent until almost 7. Then Claire's name appeared on the screen. I watched it ring. Leona looked up from her magazine. Are you answering? I don't know. The call ended. A message arrived a moment later. Nathan told me there were complications. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. Please tell me when you feel up to talking. I read it 3 times. She says she didn't know, I told Leona. Didn't know what? She doesn't say. The message could have meant she did not know about the arrhythmia. It could have meant she did not know the surgery was more serious than Nathan had implied. It could have meant nothing beyond the safest available words. I locked the screen. The following morning, Dr. Shaw removed one of the lines and told me I might be discharged the next day if I could walk the hall, manage the breathing device, and remain free of rhythm problems. Marcus arrived after breakfast and helped me stand. Each movement had become a negotiation with my chest. I used the folded pillow to brace myself, shuffled into the hallway, and concentrated on the blue diamonds in the flooring. At the far end, Nathan stepped out of the elevator carrying flowers and an overnight bag. He saw me leaning on the walker and stopped. For once, he did not rush forward and take over. He waited until Marcus nodded before coming closer. "I brought some things," he said. The flowers were yellow roses. Richard used to buy yellow roses when he had forgotten an occasion and hoped color could disguise timing. "What's in the bag?" I asked. "Clothes. I'm staying at your house, so it's ready when you get home. You're not." His fingers tightened around the handles. "Mom, you can barely walk. I can walk to that blue square." "That's not an answer. It's today's answer." Marcus shifted beside me, politely pretending to study the wall. Nathan lowered his voice. "You can't stay alone. I won't." "Then what are you doing?" "I'm going to Leona's." His eyes went past me to where Leona stood in my doorway. "You already decided?" "Yes." "When?" "When you told me not to list you." The yellow roses trembled slightly in his hand. He looked down at them as if they belonged to someone else. Then he set the overnight bag against the wall. "I'm still taking you home from the hospital." "No," I said. "You're not." This time, he did not argue. He picked up the bag, left the flowers on the nurse's station, and walked back toward the elevator. The elevator doors closed between us. Marcus waited until the numbers above them began descending. "You want to keep going?" "No." "Okay, I'm going to keep going." That was going to be my second question. We made it to the blue square, which turned out to be part of a pattern leading all the way around the cardiac floor. Every 6 feet, another square waited to insult me. I reached the next one before asking to turn back. At the nurse's station, the yellow roses sat in a plastic pitcher. Nathan had chosen them carefully. The stems were trimmed evenly, and the leaves below the waterline had been removed. He must have stopped at a florist rather than grabbing them from the grocery store. "He forgot those," Marcus said. "No, he left them." "Want me to bring them to your room?" I looked at the elevator. "Yes." Pain did not make me hate my son. That would have been simpler. Leona placed the roses on the windowsill and spent the rest of the afternoon pretending not to notice me look at them. They were fully open by evening, bright and extravagant against the gray parking structure. Nathan sent one message. "I'm sorry I upset you. Let me know what time discharge is." I did not answer. At 3 a.m, a nursing assistant helped me to the bathroom. My dignity had apparently been discharged before the rest of me. She stood close enough to catch me while looking carefully away, a skill I admired more than I could say. When I returned to bed, I could not settle. Every position pulled somewhere. The room was dark except for the monitor and a slice of light beneath the door. I thought about Nathan's overnight bag, packed for a stay at my house without asking me. He would have changed the thermostat because I kept it too warm. He would have moved the coffee to the cabinet he thought made more sense. He would have answered every thank you with, "That's what family does." Then he would have gone home once I could shower alone and carried the story of his sacrifice for years. That was unkind. It was also possible. I picked up my phone and opened Claire's message. I didn't know. My thumb moved over the keyboard. Didn't know what? I deleted it. At 6, a technician came to draw blood. At 7, someone brought oatmeal with the texture of wallpaper paste. By 9, Dr. Shaw had listened to my heart, examined the incision, and declared me medically ready to leave. Medically ready and personally ready are different, I told him. Most people are personally ready before they're medically ready. Most people haven't met Leona's guest room." "I heard that," Leona said from the chair. A discharge nurse spent 40 minutes explaining medications, symptoms, lifting restrictions, bathing, walking, diet, and follow-up appointments. Leona took notes in precise block letters. I tried to listen but kept losing the thread. "If she gains more than 2 pounds overnight?" Leona asked. "Call us. Temperature over 100.4? Call. New swelling? Call." I watched Leona write "call" in the margin 3 times. Nobody's phone blew up. The nurse wheeled me through the lobby just after noon. I carried the folded chest pillow. Leona carried my bag, the hospital folder, my coat, 2 pharmacy sacks, and the yellow roses. "You look like you robbed a sick person," I said. I did. She was weak. Outside, the air hit my face with a clean coldness. Cars passed through the loading lane. A man helped a woman into the passenger seat and tucked the edge of her blanket around her knees. For half a second, I looked for Nathan's car. Leona's sedan waited at the curb, dusty and familiar. She settled me in the front seat with the pillow between my chest and the seatbelt. The maneuver took enough time for a line to form behind us. A driver honked. Leona turned around and raised one finger. "Was that the polite one?" I asked. "I'm wearing a hospital visitor badge. I have moral immunity." Her guest room was at the back of a small brick ranch house 15 minutes from mine. I had slept there once, years earlier, after a retirement party where Richard drank 2 bourbon cocktails and decided every road sign was personally criticizing him. Since then, Leona had replaced the old floral wallpaper with pale green paint. The bed was piled with pillows. A tray held tissues, water, lip balm, medication, crackers, and the brass bell. "You put the bell here. I like danger." There was also a framed photograph of the 2 of us at our retirement dinner. Leona was laughing with her head thrown back. I was holding a sheet cake knife in one hand and pointing at the camera with the other. "I looked good," I said. "You were wearing shoulder pads wide enough to receive radio signals. That jacket was elegant. That jacket had municipal authority." She helped me change into a button-front pajama top. I could not lift my arms enough to manage it alone. When she fastened the second button, I turned my face toward the window. "I can do the rest." "I know." She finished anyway. I lay back against the wedge cushion she had bought and listened while she arranged pill bottles. Red lids in the morning basket, blue lids in the evening. She had written the times on index cards. "Nathan likes systems," I said. "He would approve." Leona set down the marker. "Do you want him here?" "No." That wasn't my question. I stared at the blanket over my legs. I wanted him at the hospital. I know. I wanted him to be the kind of person who would come before I had to ask. I know that, too. But now, everything he offers feels late. Leona capped the marker. Late things can still be useful. They just don't get to pretend they were on time. I looked at her. "You've been rehearsing that since the cardiac floor." She brought soup on a tray and sat at the foot of the bed while I ate 6 spoonfuls. The 7th made me nauseated. She took the bowl without comment. By evening, the house had become too quiet. Hospital noises had been intrusive, but they had also proved that other people were near. At Leona's, the furnace clicked, pipes knocked, and branches scratched the window like someone trying to be admitted. My phone rang on the tray. "Nathan." I let it ring twice, then answered. "Hi, you're out." "Yes." I called the floor. Of course he had. He had discovered calling after there was no chance he would be asked to do anything. "Why didn't you tell me?" The discharge nurse was busy telling Leona how to keep me alive. "Mom, come on." Leona rose from the bed and pointed toward the door, asking silently whether I wanted privacy. I nodded. "I went by your house," Nathan said. "I took the trash bins in and checked the heat. You still have the spare key?" A pause. "Yes." I had forgotten about the key beneath the ceramic planter on his porch. He had possessed it for 11 years, originally for emergencies. It had since been used for furnace technicians, package deliveries, camping equipment, and one occasion when Claire wanted to borrow my roasting pan while I was at church. "I want it back," I said. "What?" "My key." "Why?" "I don't want people going into my house unless I ask them. I'm not people." The words came out sharper than he intended. He heard it too. "I mean, I'm your son. I'm aware." "Then why are you treating me like some stranger with a locksmith kit?" "I'm not. I'm asking you to return a key." He breathed out heavily. "Fine. I'll bring it tomorrow. I can bring groceries, too. What do you need?" I almost said nothing. Then I looked at the crackers, medicine, and half-empty water glass. Leona had taught me enough in 3 days to know that pretending not to need anything would only make the need larger. "Fresh fruit," I said. "Plain yogurt, whole grain bread. That's it? And the key. Okay, I'll come around 10. Ask Leona first." Silence again. "Why?" "It's her house." "Right. Sure." He sounded offended by the existence of someone else's front door. At 10:15, the doorbell rang. Nathan entered carrying 4 grocery bags, a slow cooker, and the stainless steel travel mug he had previously given me. "I made chicken stew," he announced. Leona took the slow cooker. "In this, I brought the whole thing so it stays warm." The gesture was thoughtful and wildly impractical. He had also bought strawberries, bananas, 3 containers of yogurt, 2 loaves of bread, orange juice, sparkling water, oatmeal, cheese, turkey, chocolate cookies, and a rotisserie chicken. "He thinks recovery is a weather emergency," Leona said. "I didn't know what you had," Nathan replied. "You could have asked," I said. He looked at me. I was trying to help. "I know." My answer seemed to unsettle him more than criticism would have. He placed my house key on the coffee table. It was no longer on the yellow tag. "Where's the tag?" "It cracked a while ago." "When?" "I don't know." He had held the intact tag in the hospital doorway 2 days earlier. I looked at him until color rose into his face. "I took it off," he admitted. "I thought maybe you'd change your mind." Leona became very still. "About the key?" I asked. "About me staying." I leaned back against the cushions. "Nathan, I'm not trying to take over. I just don't understand why you'd rather pay strangers and impose on Leona than let me help." The old version of me would have rushed to reassure him that Leona did not feel imposed upon, that the money was manageable, that he was a good son for offering now. I picked up the key and closed my hand around it. I would rather recover with the person who agreed to receive the calls. His face tightened. "You're going to keep saying that forever?" "No. Eventually, I'll get tired. I made one mistake. You made a decision." He glanced toward Leona, then lowered his voice. "Can I talk to my mother alone?" Leona looked at me. I nodded. She carried the groceries into the kitchen. Nathan waited until we heard cabinet doors open. Then he sat on the edge of the chair opposite me. "Claire didn't tell me to write that," he said. The admission came so quietly I thought I had misunderstood him. "What?" "She said she didn't want to be responsible for hospital updates during her presentation. She said I needed to make other arrangements." He rubbed his thumb over the other. I was angry. At her, at you, at the whole thing. What whole thing? His eyes met mine. The part where everyone assumes I'll do it because I'm your son. I felt the key press into my palm. "I assumed you'd do it because I'm your mother." "That's what I mean." The words hung there, stripped of Claire, stripped of scheduling, stripped of every excuse that had made them easier to hear. From the kitchen came the soft clink of Leona putting away groceries. Nathan leaned forward. "For once, I needed you to stop expecting me." I looked at the man I had raised and understood that the message had not been careless at all. He had wanted it to hurt enough to set him free. He waited for me to argue. I could see it in the set of his shoulders. He had brought the confession prepared, like a heavy box he expected me to lift from the wrong end. I opened my hand. The house key had left a red line across my palm. "What did I expect you to do?" I asked. Nathan blinked. "What?" You said everyone assumes you'll do it. What have I asked you to do? This isn't a ledger. No, ledgers have dates. I'm asking for examples. He stood, then sat again. It's the constant stuff. What constant stuff? Exactly. You don't even notice. I waited. The calls about the garbage disposal, he said. The questions about the car, wanting me at every holiday my garbage disposal made smoke. I know. And I asked if you knew a plumber. You sent me a link. That's not the point. You didn't come fix it. You would have expected me to if I hadn't sent the link. The logic had no door in it. I kept walking around looking for one. What about the car? I asked. You called me from the dealership because they wanted to replace 4 tires that were 6 months old. I asked what brand you bought. You always make me responsible for the answer. I took the car home with the same tires. He looked toward the kitchen, perhaps hoping Leona would interrupt. She did not. And every holiday? I asked. Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, your birthday, Dad's birthday, even though he's gone. I invited you to dinner on your father's birthday twice because you didn't want to be alone. That's true. There. See? I did see. I saw myself calling at 8 in the morning to ask what time they might arrive. I saw Nathan's car pulling into my driveway 3 hours later than he had promised. I saw myself warming food and saying it did not matter. I also saw the years before that. Nathan and Claire carrying boxes into my sewing room because their rent had gone up and his contract job had ended. Claire crying at my kitchen table, ashamed to be 34 and living with her mother-in-law. Nathan telling her not to worry because Mom liked having them there. They stayed 11 months. I had not asked for money. I had not asked them to mow the lawn. I learned to schedule laundry around their sleep and stopped inviting Leona over because Claire worked from home and needed quiet. When they moved out, I scrubbed rings from the bathtub and told myself I missed them. Did living in my house feel like an expectation? I asked. Nathan's jaw shifted. That was different. How? We needed help. Yes. I knew you'd bring that up someday. I stared at him. I didn't bring it up for 7 years, but you remembered. So did you. He looked down. That was the terrible thing about family generosity. If you remembered giving it, the person who received it could accuse you of keeping score. If you forgot, they could call it effortless. I didn't help you, so you would owe me heart surgery, I said. That's how it feels. It feels that way because you accepted everything as love and treated the first thing I needed as a debt. Nathan stood again. This time he went to the window. My whole life, you've had a way of making things sound optional when they're not. Give me one. Sunday dinners. You miss them all the time. And then you say, maybe next week, in that voice. What voice? That one. Despite everything, I nearly laughed. He turned toward me. You say you don't mind, but you do. You say it's fine, but you get quiet. You ask if I can come over, and if I say no, you ask what I'm doing. People ask follow-up questions. You make every no feel like a character flaw. I wanted to dismiss that. The denial reached my mouth and stopped. There had been Sundays when I baked a pie before calling him, because I knew the pie increased the chances he would come. There had been evenings when I offered to watch for a delivery because it gave me a reason to see him afterward. I had never said, you owe me. I had simply arranged my usefulness in the shape of an invitation. I may have done that, I said. Nathan's expression changed. He had expected defense, not recognition. I shouldn't have, I added. But you could have told me before I was filling out a hospital form. I tried. When? Lots of times. When? He rubbed the back of his neck. When I said we were busy. That means you were busy. It means I didn't want to come. The plainness of it hurt, but not as much as I expected. Perhaps because it was finally his sentence, rather than Claire's. You were allowed to say that, I said. Would you have heard it? I don't know. He nodded as though I had proved his point. But I would have heard. I can't be your contact, I continued. I would have heard, Thursday is impossible. You didn't say either one. I was angry. I know. I didn't think you'd take it literally. You wanted me to stop expecting you. I stopped. His face closed. From the kitchen, Leona turned on the faucet. Water rushed into the silence. Nathan picked up his coat. I shouldn't have written it that way. No. But you're acting like I wanted you to die. I'm acting like I needed someone who could be called if I might. He flinched. For a moment, I wanted to open my arms and pull him close. He looked tired, frightened, far younger than 41. Then my chest tightened beneath the bandage, reminding me that wanting to comfort him did not mean I had the strength to carry him. I need to rest, I said. Fine. Thank you for the groceries. His eyes moved toward the kitchen. I made the stew. I know. I looked up low-sodium recipes. That touched me despite my best efforts. I'll try it. He nodded once and left. The front door shut softly. Leona waited a full minute before returning. She carried 2 glasses of water and set one beside me. How much did you hear? I asked. My kitchen has walls, Margaret. They're thin walls. They're discreet walls. I drank half the water. Was I awful? Yes. I looked at her. So was he, she added. People can take turns. That afternoon, I slept for 3 hours. When I woke, the house smelled of chicken, thyme, and carrots. Leona had warmed Nathan's stew. She brought me a small bowl. It was good. Too much rosemary, but good. I ate all of it. The first recovery aide arrived Monday morning. Her name was Angela Ruiz, and she wore bright green sneakers and carried a tote bag large enough to conceal a medium appliance. She was in her 50s, broad-shouldered, and unimpressed by my insistence that I could do most things myself. Then you'll have plenty of energy to supervise, she said. I don't supervise. Leona, passing through with coffee, coughed theatrically. Angela checked the shower setup, reviewed my medication cards, and asked whether I had been walking. To the bathroom. That is a destination, not exercise. She's going to fit right in, Leona said. Angela took me outside. We walked to the end of the driveway and back. The cold air pinched my lungs, and my legs weakened halfway. Angela did not grab me. She simply slowed until her steps matched mine. At the door, I was panting. Tomorrow we go 1 house farther, she said. What have those people ever done for me? Provided a measurable goal. By Wednesday, I could shower with Angela waiting outside the bathroom instead of beside the curtain. By Friday, I could fasten most of my own buttons. Recovery announced itself in small, undignified victories. Nathan texted each morning. Need anything? At first, I answered no. Then Leona caught me trying to lift a saucepan. Ask him, she said. He'll think everything is fixed. Ask him anyway. I requested laundry detergent and decaffeinated tea. Nathan left both on Leona's porch before work. He included a bag of chocolate-covered almonds and did not come inside. Late that afternoon, Leona found me looking at the unopened bag. He remembered the right kind, I said. Dangerous. Soon he'll know your birthday. He knows my birthday. Then stop grading basic information like advanced mathematics. I opened the bag and ate 2 almonds. When I was strong enough to sit at Leona's kitchen table for dinner, we ate Nathan's stew again. He had made enough to supply a firehouse. You've canceled on me 11 times, Leona said, cutting a biscuit in half. I looked up. What? Since Richard died. 11. You counted. I remembered. There it was again. I'm sorry, I know. I thought you were busy too. I was. I still showed up. I looked toward the hallway where my walker stood folded against the wall. I made him too important. You made being needed too important. That sounds like something printed on a mug. I'll get it made. World's okayest boundary. I laughed hard enough to clutch my pillow. Afterward, Leona went to shower. I remained at the table, sorting the evening pills, when the doorbell rang. Through the window beside the door, I saw Claire. She wore a camel-colored coat and held a paper bag against her chest. Her blonde hair, usually smooth, was twisted into a loose knot. She looked tired and uncertain, 2 things Claire generally avoided displaying in public. I opened the door before Leona could return. Claire's gaze dropped to my incision pillow. Hi, Margaret. Hello. I brought muffins. So everyone has decided carbohydrates are medical care. Her smile flickered. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She entered carefully, as though Leona's house were a room where someone was sleeping. At the kitchen table, she removed 4 bran muffins from the bag and arranged them on a plate she had apparently brought from home. I didn't know what you were allowed to eat, she said. These don't have much sugar. Thank you. We sat across from each other. Claire folded her hands. Nathan told me what he admitted to you. Which part? That I didn't tell him to send that message. I waited. She looked directly at me. I did say I didn't want the calls coming to my phone. I was angry too. About me? About him? The shower shut off down the hall. Pipes knocked inside the wall. Claire touched the edge of the plate. He volunteers me for everything he doesn't want to do himself, she said. Then he tells you I'm the reason he can't do it. I stared at her. He's been doing that to both of us for years. I picked up one of the bran muffins, then put it back down. How? I asked. Claire's shoulders lowered slightly, as if she had expected me to dismiss her before she reached that question. The furnace technician, she said. Nathan said you offered to wait at our house. He told me the appointment was the only one they had. He chose that window. I was working from home. I could have let the technician in. I remembered sitting in Nathan's living room for 4 hours, while the technician arrived during the 5th. Claire had come downstairs twice, once for coffee and once to ask whether the television was too loud for me. Why didn't you tell me? Because Nathan said you were excited to help. I was not excited about a furnace. He said it gave you something to do. The words landed with an old familiarity. I could hear Nathan's voice inside them, warm and persuasive, making every arrangement sound like kindness. The patio furniture? I asked. Claire sighed. He ordered it. I told him not to schedule delivery while we were away. He said you wouldn't mind. I missed lunch with Leona. I didn't know that. I didn't tell anyone. That's part of the problem. My spine stiffened. I'm sorry? Claire reached for a muffin but only pulled the paper wrapper loose around its edges. You say yes, Margaret. You always say yes, even when you mean, remember this later. I have never said that, not out loud. The kitchen seemed to sharpen around us. The neat row of spice jars on Leona's counter, the chrome lever on the toaster, 4 virtuous muffins waiting to be disliked. If you came here to explain that Nathan's message was my fault, I said, you can take the plate and go. I didn't. You were building toward it. No, I was building toward my part. She flattened the muffin wrapper with one pale fingernail. I liked that you said yes, she said. It made our lives easier. I liked having someone else deal with deliveries and holiday meals and all the things Nathan forgot. But I hated what came with it. What came with it? The feeling that you were always waiting to be included. That hurt because I recognized it. Claire continued carefully. If you dropped off soup, you came inside and stayed. If you watched for a package, you wanted us to have dinner with you afterward. If you hosted Thanksgiving, we couldn't leave when we wanted because you'd spent 3 days cooking. I never stopped you from leaving. You stood at the sink washing dishes after we offered to help and said, No, you two go enjoy yourselves. I meant it. You made it sound like we'd abandoned a ship. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. Claire looked startled. I did not sound like a sinking ship. You sounded exactly like a sinking ship. I may have sounded like a disappointed fairy. Her mouth twitched. The humor passed quickly, but it loosened something. I should have told you directly, she said. Instead, I complained to Nathan. He agreed with me, then kept asking you for favors because it was convenient. I let him make me the mean one when he wanted to tell you no. And I let him make you the overbearing one when he wanted me to feel guilty. Why? Because sometimes you were overbearing. The answer was so immediate that I respected it against my will. And sometimes you were mean, I said. I know. She did not defend herself. There had been Christmases when Claire greeted my gifts with a polite smile and set them aside unopened. Dinners when she looked at her phone while I spoke. Invitations declined without an alternative date. I had blamed her for teaching Nathan distance, as if I had raised a man incapable of locating it himself. "What exactly did you say about the hospital?" I asked. Claire folded her hands again. "Nathan told me you needed a contact. I said he should do it. He said you didn't want the calls. I said I didn't want them coming to me while I was presenting. He had already told his office he might be unavailable, so I assumed he was handling it. He said the two of you couldn't have both phones blowing up. He never asked me to turn mine on." I looked down at the table. "He came home after seeing you at the hospital," Claire said. "He was shaking. He said you'd had a complication and no one called him. I asked why the hospital didn't have his number. What did he say? That you were proving a point." "Of course." I asked what point. "That's when he showed me the messages. And you came here because he used my name to hurt you." "Did you tell him that?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "That I started it." A short, humorless laugh passed between us. Richard used to call that style of argument musical blame. Everyone kept passing the instrument so no one had to play it. The bathroom door opened down the hall. Leona appeared in a robe, her damp hair combed back. "Oh," she said when she saw Claire. "Hello, Leona." "Hello." Leona's eyes moved from Claire to me, then to the muffins. "Bran." "Low sugar," Claire said. "So you're apologizing through punishment." Claire almost smiled. "We're talking," I said. "I can see that." Leona filled a glass at the sink, moving slowly enough to give me time to ask her to stay. "I'm all right," I said. She nodded and returned down the hall. Claire watched her go. "She's protective of you. She earned the right." The sentence came out harder than I intended. Claire accepted it. I know. I studied the woman across from me. She had been married to Nathan for 9 years. For much of that time, I had treated her like a gate standing between me and my son. Sometimes she had been. Sometimes Nathan had closed the gate and left her name on it. "Do you love him?" I asked. Claire's eyes widened. "That's a large question for a bran muffin. I'm taking several medications." "Yes," she said, "I love him." But he avoids any feeling that might make him look bad. If I'm upset, he becomes wounded that I'm upset. If you need him, he becomes trapped by the need. Then we end up comforting him. That was painfully accurate. "He was frightened," I said. "I know. He made stew. I chopped the vegetables." I looked at her. "He said he made it. He browned the chicken. Too much rosemary." That was him. For the first time in years, Claire and I laughed together without Nathan in the room to decide whether it was safe. She stayed another half hour. We did not repair our relationship. We did not hug. But when she left, she took 2 muffins and left the plate, which felt like an appropriately cautious exchange. Leona came back wearing clothes and carrying the glass she had not needed. "Well?" she asked. "She says Nathan has been using both of us as human shields. Efficient. Saves on armor. She also said I make favors feel expensive." Leona leaned against the counter. "She's not wrong. You could wait until I'm stronger. You asked." "I did not. You made the face." "What face?" "The same one Nathan hates." I stared at her until she laughed. 3 days later, Angela drove me to my house. I had been at Leona's just over a week, but the place felt altered when I stepped inside. The rooms were colder than I liked. Nathan had lowered the thermostat after all. A pile of mail lay squarely on the entry table. On top was a handwritten note. "Trash out. Plants watered. Fridge cleaned. Call if you need anything. Love, N." The note annoyed me. Then it touched me. Then I became annoyed that it touched me. Angela carried my bag to the bedroom while I walked slowly through the kitchen. Nathan had thrown away the one capable egg. He had also discarded 3 jars past their expiration dates and wiped the shelves. The photograph beside the fruit bowl remained in place. I picked it up and looked at Nathan smiling toward me beyond the frame. This time, I moved it to the bookcase in the living room. Not face down, just no longer in the center of the kitchen. In the garage, the camping equipment still occupied the wall. I stood in the doorway with my pillow against my chest, 4 sleeping bags, 2 coolers. The canopy Nathan had come to collect the morning he learned about my complication, plastic tubs, folding chairs, a camp stove, none of it belonged to me, yet I had spent years parking carefully around it. Angela came up behind me. "You need something out here." "Space. That's above my pay grade. I think it's above mine too." I took a photograph of the equipment and sent it to Nathan. "Please collect these by the end of the month. I need the garage clear." His reply arrived quickly. "Why? Are you selling the house?" "No." "Downsizing?" "No." "Then what do you need the space for?" I looked around the garage. I did not know yet. That seemed important. "My car," I wrote. He sent 3 dots, stopped, then sent them again. "You've parked there for years." Carefully, I answered. He did not reply. Angela helped me settle into the recliner. She placed water, medication, and the bell within reach. "You expecting visitors?" she asked. "No." "Want me to put on coffee in case?" "No." She nodded, neither approving nor pitying. At noon, she warmed the last of Nathan's stew. When she left at 2, the house fell quiet again. I sat with the bowl in my lap and felt the loneliness arrive. It was not noble. It did not feel like freedom. It felt like an empty chair, a silent phone, and too much afternoon. I could have called Nathan. Instead, I called Leona. She answered with, "What did you lift?" "Nothing." "What are you pretending you don't need?" "Company." The word came more easily than it had the week before. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said. "You don't have to." "I know." I heard my old reflex and corrected myself. "Bring cards," I said. "And that awful decaf. That's better." When she arrived, she did not come because I had made myself useful, helpless, or difficult to refuse. She came because I asked. Leona brought a deck of cards with 2 queens missing. "This feels symbolic," I said. "It's what happens when you lend things to Bonnie." We played gin at the kitchen table while afternoon lights slid across the floor. I lost 4 games, accused Leona of exploiting a cardiac patient, and ate enough chocolate-covered almonds to undo an hour of dietary counseling. When she left, I did not stand at the door and tell her she should not have come. I said, "Thank you. I needed that." Her expression softened. "Careful. Honesty at your age can become a habit." Angela arrived the following morning and walked me 1 house beyond the neighbors she had previously designated as a measurable goal. At the corner, my breathing shortened. She waited without fuss while I pressed the pillow to my chest. "You're improving," she said. "I'm still paying you to watch me walk badly. You're paying me so you get to keep walking badly until it becomes walking well." That sounded suspiciously useful. By the end of the week, I could make toast, dress myself, and get out of the recliner without swinging my arms like a capsized turtle. I still tired after a shower. I still woke at night convinced the incision had opened, then checked beneath my pajama top and found it exactly where I had left it. Nathan's camping equipment remained in the garage. On the last Saturday of the month, his SUV pulled into my driveway at 9. Claire sat in the passenger seat. Nathan climbed out alone and opened the back hatch. I watched from the kitchen window. He moved the first cooler without knocking. I opened the side door. "Good morning." He looked up. "Hey, were you going to come inside?" "I didn't want to bother you." "You're using my garage." "I'm removing my things like you asked." Claire got out of the SUV. She wore jeans, boots, and an old college sweatshirt. I had never seen her dressed for lifting. "Hi, Margaret," she said. "Hello." She looked at Nathan. "We should have knocked. I have a garage code, which is not the same as an invitation." Nathan's mouth tightened. "Can we just load the stuff?" We worked in an uncomfortable triangle. Nathan carried the heavy tubs. Claire folded chairs and brushed cobwebs from the camp stove. I stood at the door issuing information no one needed. The red cooler leaks. "I know," Nathan said. "The tent poles are in the blue bag. I know. The lantern takes D batteries." He stopped. "Mom, I know my own equipment. You've stored it here for 4 years." Claire covered a laugh by coughing. Nathan looked at her. What? Nothing. He returned to the garage where a plastic cup rolled from beneath one of the sleeping bags. It was printed with the name of a brewery Richard had liked. Nathan picked it up and turned it in his hands. This was Dad's. Yes. Can I have it? The question surprised me. Before the surgery, he would have placed it in a tub and assumed. Yes, I said. You can have it. He set it carefully in the front seat instead of tossing it with the equipment. When the last chair was loaded, the garage looked enormous. Dust outlined the places where the tubs had stood. My car occupied the other side, no longer pressed close to the wall. Nathan stared into the empty space. You really just wanted room for the car? Yes, you already had room. I wanted enough that I didn't have to think about your things every time I opened my door. He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. That sounds like it's not about the car. It's also about the car. Claire walked past him and hugged me gently, keeping her arms above the incision. Thank you for storing everything, she said. You're welcome. Nathan studied us. Where are you putting it? I asked. Our basement, Claire said. I thought there wasn't room. There is now. The answer carried enough weight that I did not ask what had been moved. Nathan closed the SUV hatch. Are we still doing Thanksgiving here? It was 5 days away. The question should not have surprised me. Thanksgiving had been at my house for 22 years, except the year Richard was too ill to leave the hospital. Even then, I had packed turkey and mashed potatoes into containers and carried the meal to the family lounge. I'm not cooking this year. We know that, Nathan said. We can handle it. Claire turned toward him. We never discussed that. I can cook a turkey. You made one chicken stew. It was good. It was rosemary with chicken in it. I leaned against the door frame, tired from standing. Leona invited me to her house. They both stopped. Nathan's eyebrows rose. For Thanksgiving? That's usually what a Thanksgiving invitation means, but we always come here. I know. We can bring everything. You don't have to do anything. There it was again. His plan arriving dressed as relief. I've already said yes to Leona, then invite her too. To her own house? You know what I mean? I don't want to host this year, Nathan. You wouldn't be hosting. It's my home. I would be hosting even if you cooked the turkey in the bathtub. Claire looked down, lips pressed together. Nathan glanced at her. You don't care? I think your mother should do what she wants. Of course you do. Claire's face closed. I recognized the motion now. He had put the instrument into her hands. Don't, I said. He turned back to me. Don't what? Make Claire responsible for what you're feeling. His eyes narrowed. So now you two have meetings about me? No. We had muffins. That's not an answer. It's the one I have. You're really going to spend Thanksgiving with Leona, he said. And Bonnie. Her niece is working, so she's coming too. Gary may stop by after he sees his brother. All adults with their own imperfect arrangements. Nobody was presenting a replacement family for inspection. We were simply people who had chairs and appetite. Nathan looked at the floor. What are we supposed to do? Have Thanksgiving? Where? You have a house. We don't have a dining table. Claire stared at him. We have a dining table. It seats 4. There are 2 of us. I saw the moment he realized how foolish he sounded. Instead of laughing, which I might once have done to rescue him, I let the silence stand. He sat across from me. Fine. We'll do it at home. That sounds nice. It sounds like Thursday. Claire took her coat from the chair. I'm going to wait in the car. Claire, he said, I don't want to be volunteered for the next sentence. She left through the garage. Nathan rubbed his face. She's been like this since the hospital. What does that mean? Everything I say is suddenly evidence. Of what? That I don't take responsibility. I waited. He gave me an irritated look. You're doing it too. Doing what? Waiting for me to prove her point. I asked a question. He stood, paced to the sink, then back. The 2 of you have decided I'm some selfish monster. No, could have fooled me. I think you're a man who wrote a cruel message because he was angry and expected everyone else to absorb the consequences." He stared at me. "That is not the same as a monster." I apologized. "You said you shouldn't have written it that way. What else do you want?" I did not have an answer that could fit inside that kitchen. I wanted the surgery morning replaced. I wanted to wake with his hand around mine. I wanted him to understand without making me explain until my hurt sounded like an argument. "I don't know," I said. He took his keys from his pocket. At the garage door, he paused. "What about the beach house?" I looked up. "What about it? You said you were looking at rentals." I was. "Claire found one near Corolla. It's available in May. The family vacation. The account labeled travel. The money I had moved before surgery while the bank questioned my judgment. I'm not paying for a beach house." Nathan looked more confused than offended. "I didn't ask you to pay for the whole thing. You sent me houses that cost more for a week than my first car. You said you wanted us all to go somewhere." "I did. So what changed?" I touched the edge of my incision through my blouse. "I used that money for recovery care." His eyes dropped to my hand. "How much did the aid cost?" "Enough." "You should have told me." "I told you I hired someone. I didn't know it was coming out of the vacation money. What difference would that have made?" "I could have." He stopped. "Could have what?" I asked. He had no honest answer. He could not say he would have become my contact if he had known there was a beach house attached. "Nothing," he said. Claire honked once from the driveway. Nathan opened the door. "The care mattered more," I said. He nodded without looking at me. "I know." But his voice held the sound of a man discovering that choices had prices even when nobody sent him a bill. Thanksgiving at Leona's was loud, overcooked, and imperfect. Bonnie brought stuffing with raisins despite being told not to. Gary arrived with 2 bottles of wine and no corkscrew. Leona's turkey finished an hour late, so we ate olives and argued about whether a cranberry qualified as a berry. Nobody asked me to carve anything. At 4, Nathan texted a photograph of the small table in his dining room. 2 plates, 2 glasses, the blue serving bowl I had given Claire for their anniversary. Between them sat a turkey breast, browned nearly black. "We survived," he wrote. I showed Leona. "Looks dry," she said. "It does." "Are you going to answer?" I typed. "Looks good. Happy Thanksgiving. Love you both." Nathan responded with a heart. For a moment, I wanted to be at that little table. I wanted to complain about the turkey, wash the blue bowl, and restore us through chores. Instead, I put my phone away and asked Leona for more stuffing. On Sunday, Nathan came to my house carrying leftovers in one of my own containers. He looked exhausted. "Claire's staying with her sister tonight," he said before removing his coat. I waited for the familiar invitation to begin. The complaint, the explanation, the careful presentation of his wife as the source of his unhappiness. "She says she needs space," he continued. "Apparently I make everything about me." I took the container from him. "Have you asked her what she means? I thought I'd talk to you first." "No." He blinked. "No what?" "I'm not going to help you explain Claire to yourself." His face changed. "You're my mother." "Yes. I should be able to talk to you. You can talk to me about your feelings. You can't use me to build a case against your wife." I wasn't. "You brought leftovers and opened with where Claire is sleeping." He stared at the floor. "What am I supposed to do? Talk to her? What if she won't? Wait until she will. And in the meantime?" I looked toward the guest room, already knowing what he had not yet asked. "In the meantime, you go home." He lifted his eyes to mine. For the first time, being my son did not automatically answer the question of where he belonged. Nathan looked past me toward the hallway. "I wasn't asking to stay." "I know." "Then why did you say it like that?" "Because you were about to." His mouth opened, then closed. I set the container on the counter. Through its cloudy lid, I could see slices of overcooked turkey breast surrounded by something orange. "Are those sweet potatoes?" "Claire made them. They look good." She took the good ones to her sisters. The old rhythm waited for me. I was supposed to smile, agree that Claire could be difficult, and hand Nathan a cup of coffee, while he described himself as the injured party in a conflict whose other participant was not present. Instead, I put the container in the refrigerator. "Do you want coffee?" He seemed surprised. "Sure, you can have coffee. You can't have a campaign headquarters. A what? A place to organize your case against your wife. I'm not building a case. You've already submitted the sweet potatoes as evidence." That made him laugh despite himself. He sat at the kitchen table while I filled the coffee maker. Lifting the water reservoir pulled at my chest, and Nathan immediately stood. "Let me." I considered refusing. Then I handed it to him. He filled it and returned it without rearranging anything. We drank coffee. He told me Claire had gone to her sister's after an argument about Thanksgiving. He kept describing the argument as if it had started with turkey, but each turn took us farther back. Claire was angry about the hospital message. Nathan was angry she had spoken to me without telling him. She said he wanted to control what each of us knew about the other. He said she had spent years criticizing me in private, then acted innocent when his message became ugly. Was she criticizing me, I asked, or talking to her husband about a relationship that bothered her? Nathan stared into his cup. "Whose side are you on? The side where you stop asking that question." He leaned back. "You've changed. I had a valve replaced. You know that's not what I mean." "I know." He left after an hour. At the door, he hugged me carefully and whispered, "I'm glad you're okay." I hugged him back. "I'm getting there." He went home alone. Recovery continued whether my family was prepared for it or not. Angela made me walk farther each day. The blue house at the corner became the mailbox beyond it, then the stop sign, then the small park where 3 benches faced a pond full of geese with organized criminal tendencies. At cardiac rehabilitation, a technician attached sensors to my chest and placed me on a treadmill moving at a speed that would not have challenged a thoughtful snail. "You're doing great," she said. "I'm being overtaken by furniture. Furniture doesn't have a new valve. That sounds like an excuse." I watched the green line of my heart move across the monitor. Each beat looked fragile and stubborn. Mine. Nathan asked if he could come to a rehabilitation session. I said no the first time. He did not argue. A week later, he asked again. "Maybe another time," I wrote. He replied, "Okay." The absence of protest was unsettling. I had become so accustomed to managing his reaction that a simple acceptance felt like a trick. I waited for a second message. None came. Claire called once. She had returned home, but she and Nathan were sleeping in separate rooms. She did not ask me to intervene. "I'm trying to decide whether he understands what happened," she said, "or just understands that everyone is angry. I don't know. Has he talked to you?" "Yes. Does he blame me?" "Sometimes." Her laugh was tired. "At least he's consistent." "Claire, I'm not going to report on him to you. I know. I'm sorry. I'm also not going to report on you to him." She was quiet for a moment. "Thank you." That was all. Angela reduced her visits from 5 days a week to 3. The first morning I was alone, I made oatmeal, forgot it on the stove, and burned the bottom so badly that the kitchen smelled like a lumber yard. I opened the back door, wrapped myself in a coat, and sat on the step while smoke escaped. My first instinct was to call Nathan. My second was to call Leona. Instead, I turned off the burner, waited for the pan to cool, and dealt with it myself. Later, I told both of them. Nathan brought me a new saucepan. Leona brought a box of cereal. Their gifts stood beside each other on the counter, one solving the disaster and the other preventing its return. At my 6-week appointment, Dr. Shaw cleared me to drive short distances. I drove to Leona's house first. She stood in the driveway taking photographs as though I had crossed the country in a covered wagon. "Do I look different?" I asked when I got out. "You look like someone who should stop too far from the curb. I'm within legal limits. You're in another climate." We went to lunch at the restaurant where I had canceled on her months earlier. The hostess gave us a booth beside the window. I ordered soup and half a sandwich, then ate almost everything. "You're paying," Leona said. I assumed. For the canceled lunches, too, I'll need financing." She lifted her glass. "To expensive friendship." I touched mine to hers. At home that evening, I opened my calendar and saw a note in my own handwriting. "Send Nathan rental options. The beach trip." I crossed it out, then sat there with the pen in my hand. The cancellation was not revenge. The money was gone. Even if it had not been, I no longer wanted to rent a house large enough to hold the version of us we pretended to be. I wrote card night at Leona's in the empty space. At 9, the doorbell rang. Nathan stood on the porch with an overnight bag. Snow dusted the shoulders of his coat. He had not zipped it. His face was blotched from cold or anger. "Claire asked me to leave," he said. I gripped the edge of the door. For a moment, I saw every Nathan who had ever come home. 8 years old after cutting his knee on a bicycle. 17 after his first serious breakup. 26 after Richard told him he had wasted too much time on a job he hated. 34 with boxes in the driveway and Claire crying behind him. My body moved before my boundary did. I opened the door wider. He stepped inside. The overnight bag rolled across the threshold and stopped on the rug. "What happened?" I asked. "She says she can't think with me in the house." "Did she ask you to leave for the night?" "She said she didn't know how long." He took off his coat. His hands shook as he hung it on the hook. I didn't know where else to go. The guest room waited down the hall. Clean sheets, empty closet. The same room where he and Claire had lived for 11 months. I could picture the bag on the chair, his shoes beside the bed, coffee brewing in the morning. I could feed him, listen to him, and be necessary again before either of us admitted what was happening. "You can't stay here," I said. He turned slowly. "What?" "You can't move in." "I'm not moving in. I need somewhere to sleep. You have friends. I don't want to explain this to friends, but you'll explain it to me. You're my mother." The phrase had become his skeleton key. It was supposed to open every locked door. "Yes," I said, "and I love you. Then let me stay. I can love you and still not be the place you come only when everyone else says no." He looked as if I had slapped him. "That's what you think this is? What is it? My wife told me to get out, and you came here because you knew I'd let you in. I came because this is home. No. Your home is the house you share with Claire." "Apparently not. Then a night in my guest room won't fix it. I didn't ask you to fix anything. You brought a bag." He stared at the rug. The cruelty of my answer pressed against me. He was my son. He was hurting. A bed existed 20 feet away, empty and warm. Denying it felt less like a boundary than a failure of instinct. I reached for the bag. Nathan lifted his head. I moved it away from the hallway and set it beside the front door. "You can come in," I said. "I'll make coffee. You can talk, or you can sit quietly. But you can't stay the night." His eyes shone. He turned toward the window before I could be certain. "I wouldn't do this to you," he said. The sentence entered the room like a blade. "You did." He closed his eyes. Neither of us spoke. Then he sat on the bench by the door and covered his face with both hands. I stood there, one hand against my chest, feeling my heart beat behind healing bone. After a while, he said, "I know." Not "I know you think I did," not "I know you're still upset," only "I know." I went into the kitchen and made coffee. Nathan followed without his bag. We sat across from each other at the same table where Claire and I had spoken. Snow gathered against the dark windows. "What did you say to her?" I asked. She asked why I sent the message. And I told her I was overwhelmed. That's a reason. "What did you say?" His thumb rubbed over the other. "I told her you've always made me feel responsible for you. Do you believe that?" "Sometimes." "Did you tell her you also said you were angry with her?" He looked away. "No." "So you made me the reason this time." He gave a small, miserable laugh. "I guess." "Not a guess." "No." He drank coffee and winced because it was too hot. "I keep thinking if I explain it correctly, one of you will tell me I wasn't terrible." I don't think you're terrible. His eyes lifted. I think you did something terrible. That feels like a small difference. It's the difference that lets you change. He looked down at the steam rising from his cup. What if Claire's done? That's between you and Claire. What am I supposed to do tonight? I can call a hotel. His face tightened, then relaxed. The fight had gone out of him. Okay, I made the call. Nathan paid for the room himself. Before leaving, he picked up the overnight bag and stood with his hand on the doorknob. Did you ever feel this way with Dad? He asked. Which way? Like he made you the worst version of yourself. I thought of Richard ill and frightened, snapping at me because I was the only person who would remain. I thought of the years before illness, when he apologized badly but tried again. Yes. What did you do? Sometimes I forgave him too quickly. Sometimes I punished him for things he hadn't done yet. Eventually, I learned to ask whether we were solving the problem or only trying to win the pain. Nathan nodded. Which one am I doing? You're asking me instead of Claire. He absorbed that. Then he opened the door. The cold entered first. Nathan stepped onto the porch and turned back. I'm sorry, Mom. It was the first apology he had offered without attaching a misunderstanding to it. I wanted to reward him with the guest room. Instead, I said, I believe you. He walked to his car carrying his own bag. His taillights disappeared at the end of the street. I closed the door, locked it, and stood with my hand on the deadbolt until the house went quiet again. The guest room was exactly as I had imagined it. Clean quilt, 2 pillows, empty chair. I went inside and sat on the edge of the bed. Refusing him had not made me feel strong. It made me feel like I had carried a glass across a room without dropping it, only to discover there was nowhere safe to set it down. I touched the pillow beside me. For 11 months, Nathan and Claire had slept in that room. Nathan complained the mattress dipped toward the center. Claire kept her shoes lined beneath the window. I had heard them whispering at night, trying to make plans while pretending not to be afraid. I had been glad they came to me. I was still glad. That was the part nobody warned you about when you drew a boundary. The past did not reorganize itself to support your decision. Love did not become counterfeit just because its old arrangement had become unbearable. My phone buzzed. Nathan had sent a message. At the hotel. I'm okay. Then, a minute later, thank you for not saying what I wanted to hear. I read the second sentence several times. My answer was simple. Get some sleep. He stayed at the hotel for 3 nights. I knew because he told me, not because I asked Claire. On the 4th day, he returned home. Claire sent me a message saying only that they were talking. I did not ask what talking meant. For once, their marriage remained in their house. Nathan did not call for several days. The silence was not peaceful. It followed me through breakfast, medication, and the slow walks Angela still supervised 3 mornings a week. I kept checking my phone and then resenting him for making me check it, though he had not asked me to. On Friday, he texted, "If the offer still exists, I'd like to come to rehab sometime. If not, I understand." The message contained no reference to Claire, no urgency, no assumption. Tuesday at 10, I wrote. He replied, "I'll be there." He arrived at the rehabilitation center 15 minutes early, wearing khakis and a gray sweater. No flowers, no overnight bag, no object designed to prove he had thought of me. The technician attached the sensors and gestured toward a chair along the wall. "Family can sit there," she told him. Nathan's eyes moved to mine. I nodded. He sat. I stepped onto the treadmill. The belt began moving at my thoughtful snail pace. Nathan watched without looking at his phone. At first, his attention irritated me. Every weakness became visible. The way I gripped the rail, the dampness at my temples, the slight hitch in my breath when the incline rose. I wanted to tell him this was exactly why I had said no before. Then the technician asked me to rate my effort. 4, I said. She increased the speed. Nathan did not encourage me. He did not say, "You've got this," or announce that I looked great. He simply remained in the chair while I worked. After 10 minutes, my legs began to tremble. The technician slowed the belt. Good session. I traveled almost a quarter mile and remained in the same building. Very efficient. Nathan smiled, but he did not turn the moment into a joke for both of us. While I cooled down, he asked the technician what numbers mattered on the monitor. She explained the heart rate ranges, the rhythm line, and the difference between being tired and experiencing warning symptoms. Nathan listened closely. In the parking lot, he held the passenger door open. I drove myself, I said. I know, I thought we could get coffee if you want. What about my car? I'll bring you back. It was an actual plan rather than an expectation disguised as one. All right. We went to a diner near the rehabilitation center. Nathan ordered black coffee. I ordered decaf and a blueberry muffin that would have offended Claire with its sugar content. For several minutes, we discussed nothing important. The weather, the geese at the park, the new saucepan he had given me, which performed well but had a handle designed by someone hostile to cabinets. Then Nathan folded his paper napkin into smaller and smaller rectangles. I owe you a better apology. You already apologized. I apologized because I was standing on your porch with nowhere to sleep. That doesn't make it false. No, but it made it useful. I waited. He looked toward the window. Salt streaked the lower half of the glass. When Dad got sick, you disappeared. I frowned. I was there every day. That's what I mean. Everything became his medication, his appointments, his moods. You stopped seeing friends. You stopped going anywhere. You barely talked about anything else. He was dying. I know. The napkin became a narrow strip between his fingers. I watched you become the person who could always be called, and I thought that was what family meant, that if somebody needed you enough, you didn't get to have a life. I thought of the canvas tote by the front door, packed with clean socks and forbidden cookies. I thought of how angry I had sometimes been with Richard for needing what neither of us had chosen. So when I asked you to be my hospital contact, I said, you thought I was handing you the tote. Maybe. You could have carried a phone for one day without becoming me. I know that now. You knew it then. He nodded reluctantly. Yes. The waitress refilled his coffee. He waited until she walked away. I was scared, he said. Not just that something would happen to you. I was scared it would be the beginning of years where every decision came through me. I asked for Thursday. I turned it into the rest of my life. Yes. And then I got angry at Claire because she wouldn't promise to handle the parts I didn't want. I wrote that message to make both of you feel selfish for asking. The honesty was ugly and precise. I pulled a piece from the muffin. You succeeded. His eyes lowered. I'm sorry I told you not to list me as family. I'm sorry I used Claire to say it. I'm sorry I made you wake up without me there. My throat tightened. He did not reach for my hand. He did not ask whether I forgave him. I wanted you, I said. I know. No, Nathan. I woke up with a tube in my throat. I couldn't move. I didn't understand where I was. I tried to ask for you. His face crumpled briefly, then steadied. Leona was there, I continued. She had on that ridiculous purple coat. It's very purple. She held my hand. He nodded. I'm glad. That answer mattered. He did not compete with her. He did not say it should have been him. I'm not asking you to change the form, he said. It was one form. You know what I mean. I did. He dropped me back at my car and waited until I was seated before leaving. At home, I found a message from him. Thank you for letting me come. Not thank you for forgiving me. Not thank you for understanding. I put the phone down and cried anyway. Change arrived in pieces too small to trust at first. Nathan began calling on Sunday mornings. Not every day, not at a dramatic hour, and not to ask what I needed before becoming irritated that I needed something. He told me one true thing about his week and asked one real question about mine. Sometimes the calls lasted 8 minutes. Sometimes they were awkward. Once he forgot entirely and called Monday evening to say, I forgot, instead of claiming his phone had failed or Claire had made plans. When my porch light burned out, I asked if he could replace it. He said Thursday. On Thursday, he came with a bulb, changed it, and left without searching for additional evidence of my helplessness. I missed feeding him. So I asked if he wanted lunch. He said yes. We ate tomato soup at the kitchen table. I did not pack leftovers unless he requested them. He did not ask me to wait for any deliveries. Claire returned to the Sunday calls gradually. Sometimes I heard her in the background. Sometimes she spoke. She and Nathan were seeing a marriage counselor, which Nathan told me without describing the sessions or recruiting me to interpret them. Near Christmas, they invited me to dinner at their house. Their dining table did in fact seat 4. Claire cooked salmon. Nathan made roasted potatoes with far less rosemary than the occasion deserved. I brought a pie because they asked me to bring dessert. After dinner, Claire and I carried plates into the kitchen. Nathan followed with the serving bowl. "Leave those," he told me. "We've got it." The old words made my shoulders rise. Then he added, "Unless you want to dry. We could use help. A choice. I'll dry." We stood together in the kitchen. Claire washed, Nathan rinsed, and I dried. Nobody told me to sit down. Nobody praised me for being useful. When the last plate was put away, I took my coat. "You don't have to rush," Nathan said. "I'm not. I'm ready to go." He accepted that too. At the front door, Claire hugged me. "We're trying," she said quietly. "I can see nobody's fixed. I'd be suspicious if they were." She smiled. The 3-month appointment with Dr. Shaw fell on a wet morning in February. I drove myself and brought a paperback for the waiting room. He examined the incision, listened to my heart, and reviewed the rehabilitation reports. "You're recovering well," he said. "I hear a but. However, more expensive than a but." He turned the monitor toward me. A portable rhythm tracker I had worn for a week had recorded several episodes when my heartbeat slipped into an irregular pattern. I didn't feel anything. That's not unusual. Is it dangerous? Not immediately. I'd like to correct it before it becomes persistent. He recommended an outpatient cardioversion, brief sedation, a controlled electrical shock, several hours of monitoring. "Routine?" I asked. His mouth curved. "I've learned not to use that word with you." Elena called later that afternoon to arrange it. Her voice was familiar before I remembered the silver stars on her fingernails. "We'll need a primary contact and someone to drive you home," she said. My eyes moved to the calendar. Card night at Leona's. Sunday calls with Nathan. Rehabilitation twice a week. The blank form seemed to appear on my kitchen table again. "Can I give you 2 names?" I asked. "Primary and secondary." I gave her Leona's number first. Then I gave her Nathan's. Before we ended the call, I asked her to read them back. Leona Price, friend, primary. Nathan Hale, son, secondary. The words hurt less than I expected. I called Leona. She said yes, then complained that hospital coffee had shortened her life. Afterward, I called Nathan. "There's a minor procedure," I told him. "Leona is driving me." "When?" "Thursday morning." A pause. "Do you want me there?" "I'm putting you down as the secondary contact." Another pause, longer this time. "All right," he said. "No complaint. No demand to be first." Then he asked, "What time should I keep my phone on?" I looked at the original message still saved in our conversation, months above the new ones. "All morning. I will." I believed him enough to be frightened by how much I wanted to. Wanting to believe him was more frightening than doubting him. Doubt required nothing. Belief came with exposed wiring. On Wednesday evening, Nathan sent one message. "Phone charged. Ringer on. I'll be awake at 5. I answered with a thumbs up, the same symbol he had sent when I told him Leona would take me to heart surgery. I stared at it afterward, wondering whether he noticed. At 4:45 Thursday morning, I was dressed and sitting in my kitchen with the hospital folder on my lap. I had not been allowed food or water since midnight. Hunger had not arrived yet, but thirst had taken the restriction personally. Leona pulled into the driveway wearing the purple coat. When I opened the door, she held up both hands. "Before you say anything, these are real pants. I'm proud of you. They have a drawstring." "Don't be too proud." She took the folder and inspected me. You scared? It's outpatient. That wasn't the question. Yes. Good. We agree on reality. My phone buzzed as I fastened my coat. Nathan. Awake. Leona saw the screen. Are we picking him up? No. Is he coming? I don't know. She looked at me over her glasses. What does he know? That you're driving and he's the secondary contact. And he accepted that? Yes. Without composing a speech about birth order? He's an only child. That has never prevented him from feeling demoted. At the hospital, the same lobby seemed smaller than it had before my surgery. Or perhaps I no longer needed it to hold all my fear. Elena checked me in. Her fingernails were painted blue this time, each with a tiny silver moon. I remember you, she said. I was hoping my file was less memorable. You had the judgmental form. It hasn't apologized. She verified my address, medications, allergies, and contacts. When she read Leona's name, Leona lifted one hand. When she read Nathan's, nobody answered. Elena looked at me. Everything correct? Yes. We sat in the waiting area beneath a television showing a cooking program with the sound turned off. A chef whisked butter into something while I considered exchanging my valve for a glass of water. At 6:18, Nathan called. I answered quietly. Everything okay? He asked. They haven't shocked me yet, so our relationship is unchanged. I'm in the parking garage. I sat straighter. Why? Because I came to the hospital. You didn't tell me. I wasn't sure if you wanted me here. And coming without asking solved that? No. He paused. That sounded better in my head. Leona held out her hand for the phone. I pulled it away. What are you doing in the garage? I asked. Sitting in my car. You've been awake too long. I thought I could wait in the cafeteria. I won't come up unless you want me to. The distinction mattered. He had come close without assuming he was welcome inside. You can wait with us, I said. You sure? I wouldn't have said it otherwise. I'm still adjusting to that. So am I. He arrived 10 minutes later carrying nothing. No flowers, coffee, charger, or overnight bag. He wore jeans and a navy coat, and his hair was damp from a hurried shower. Hi, he said. Hello? He bent as if to hug me, then stopped. Can I? Yes. His arms closed carefully around me. My breastbone had healed, but he still treated my chest as something breakable. He greeted Leona. You found us, she said. I followed the purple beacon. I can still have you removed. I know. He sat on my other side. The three of us watched the silent chef ruin a sauce. Nobody mentioned the order of the contact list. A nurse called my name at 6:40. Nathan stood with us. Only one person can come back during preparation, she said. He looked at Leona. I'll wait here. No hesitation, no wounded expression. I followed the nurse down the corridor. The procedure area had curtained bays instead of rooms. I changed into another gown designed to settle any remaining argument between dignity and medicine. Leona placed my clothes in a plastic bag. I'm getting an impressive collection of those, I said. You can use them for evening purses. The nurse started an IV and attached monitors. Doctor. Shaw came by wearing a white coat instead of surgical clothes, which made the cardio version seem either reassuringly minor or alarmingly casual. We'll sedate you, he explained. Once you're asleep, we deliver a synchronized shock to restore the rhythm. Will I feel it? No. Will Leona? Only emotionally. Leona nodded. Story of my life. Dr. Shaw reviewed the risks, none of which sounded routine despite his careful voice. I signed the consent form. The nurse pulled the curtain partly closed and asked Leona for her phone number again. It's on the form, I said. We verify, she knows. The nurse smiled. Good. My phone buzzed on the tray, a message from Nathan, in waiting room, no rush to answer. I turned the phone face down. Leona noticed. What? I asked. Nothing. You have allowed nothing. He's learning. Yes, so are you. That sounds less flattering. It usually is. The anesthesiologist introduced herself. She was a woman about Claire's age with bright red glasses and the confident hands of someone who had never dropped anything important. As the medication entered the IV, I felt the familiar warmth climb my arm. "Here we go," she said. The ceiling softened. The last thing I heard was Leona telling someone she expected me returned with all original parts. I woke to pressure on my chest and a strange taste in my mouth. A nurse leaned over me. "Margaret, you're all done." My heart thudded once, twice, then continued in a steady beat. "What time is it?" I asked. My voice sounded thick. 8:20. "That seems efficient." It went very well. I turned my head. Leona sat in a chair beside the bed. Purple coat, black glasses, same hand waiting on the blanket. "Again?" I whispered. "Again. Any excitement?" "Not enough to entertain me." The nurse checked the monitor. Normal rhythm on the first attempt. "See?" Leona said. "Even your heart responds to direct communication." I was too sleepy to object. The nurse gave me ice chips and told me I would remain for observation. A reddish rectangular patch marked my chest where the pad had been. It stung like a sunburn. "Did they call you?" I asked Leona. "Twice. Once when they started, once when you were awake." I looked toward the curtain. "And Nathan? He's still waiting." "You talked to him?" I told him it went well. "What did he say?" "He said, 'Thank you.'" "That's all?" "He asked if I needed coffee." I stared at her. "Well?" I told him yes. He brought me the wrong kind, so he remains imperfect. My eyes closed. When I woke again, Nathan stood at the foot of the bed. He did not touch anything. He simply watched the monitor with his hands in his coat pockets. "Did you receive enough calls?" I asked. He looked at me and smiled. "Apparently, hospitals communicate a normal amount. Tell your wife." "I have." He moved closer. "How do you feel?" "Like someone ironed my chest. Dr. Shaw said it worked." "He called you?" "No." Leona came out. His voice held no complaint. "The nurse called her first," I said. "I know." I waited for more. None came. Nathan pulled the visitor chair closer but left space between it and the bed. "I was the secondary contact," he said. "Yes. I was glad you put me anywhere." The words were simple enough to hurt. I turned my face toward the monitor. The green line rose and fell with reassuring boredom. After another hour, the nurse brought crackers and ginger ale. I consumed both with enthusiasm normally reserved for holiday meals. She reviewed the discharge instructions with Leona. No driving for 24 hours. Rest. Continue medication. Call for chest pain, shortness of breath, fainting, or a return of the irregular rhythm. Nathan listened from the other side of the bay. When the nurse asked who was taking me home, he did not answer for Leona. "She is," I said, pointing. Leona lifted the car keys. At the curb, Nathan carried my plastic bag while Leona brought the car around. He opened the passenger door and handed me the folded incision pillow I no longer medically needed, but had brought out of habit. "I can follow you," he said. "You don't have to." "I know." The words passed between us with their changed meaning. "Would you like to?" I asked. "Yes." "All right." He followed us to my house. Leona settled me in the recliner, arranged water on the table, and went to inspect the refrigerator. Nathan stood near the doorway, uncertain whether his invitation extended beyond arrival. "You can take off your coat," I said. He did. Leona emerged holding a container. "Is this the Thanksgiving turkey?" "It may have achieved legal adulthood," I said. She threw it away and began making soup from cans in my pantry. Nathan offered to help. She handed him an onion. He chopped while she opened broth. Neither treated the kitchen like enemy territory. I watched from the recliner, tired but unable to sleep. Their voices moved in and out. "Smaller," Leona told him. "It'll cook down. It'll become large cooked onion. It's rustic. It's lazy." For the first time, they sounded less like opposing witnesses and more like two people trying to feed me. When the soup was ready, Leona stayed long enough to see me eat. Then she put on the purple coat. "You have my number," she told me. "I have had your number for 27 years. Use it before something catches fire." She looked at Nathan. "Her evening pills are in the blue basket." "I know," he said, then corrected himself. "I saw them." Leona's eyes moved to me. "You all right if I go?" "Yes." She left without making Nathan promise anything. He washed the soup bowls. Afterward, he sat across from me. "I can leave too," he said. "You just washed a bowl. You've earned 7 minutes." I was hoping for 8. We sat in the soft afternoon light. Sedation still blurred the edges of things. "Was Claire worried?" I asked. "Yes." "Did she want to come?" "She asked whether you'd want her here." "What did you say?" "I said I didn't know. That's new. I'm trying it." He leaned forward, forearms on his knees. "She and I are doing better. I'm glad. It's not fixed. I'd be suspicious. She said you'd say that." A smile passed between us. The clock ticked on the wall. My heartbeat stayed even. "Nathan?" "Yeah?" "When you sent that message, did you think I'd put down someone else and everything would continue normally?" He considered it. "I thought you'd argue. And then?" "I'd tell you I was busy. You'd say you understood. Then you'd list me anyway." The answer was painfully honest. "You thought I'd protect you from meaning it." "Yes, I usually did." "I know." I looked toward the kitchen, where the cleaned bowls dried beside the sink. "I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want you to. Sometimes you will." "I know. And sometimes I'll make an invitation feel like an obligation." He nodded. "Then I should tell you." "Yes." "What if you get angry?" "I might." "That doesn't mean you're wrong." He absorbed that slowly. My eyelids grew heavy. "You should go," I said. Nathan glanced toward the window. "Do you want me to?" "No." His expression changed. I had not meant to say it, or perhaps I had not known until the word came out. "I don't need you overnight," I added. "I'd like you to stay until the medication time." He looked at the blue basket, then back at me. Okay, no triumph. No relief large enough to place on my shoulders. He moved to the couch and picked up the paperback I had left there. "You won't like that," I said. "Why? The man is murdered in chapter 4. You just spoiled it. It's on the back cover." He turned the book over. I closed my eyes. When I woke, evening had darkened the windows. A blanket covered my legs. Nathan sat under the lamp, reading. At 8, my phone alarm sounded. He brought the blue basket and a glass of water, then placed them on the table without opening anything. "You know which ones?" he asked. "Yes." He waited while I took them myself. At the door, he put on his coat. "Call if you need me," he said. The old phrase entered the room. This time, it did not sound like a polite way to leave. After he drove away, I carried my water to the kitchen. On the counter, beside the dry bowls, Nathan had left a note. Not a list of chores performed, not instructions, only 4 words. "Glad you called me family." I pressed the paper flat with my palm. Then I turned it over and wrote beneath his sentence, "Family is what answers." I left the note on the counter. In the morning, it was still there, which seemed worth observing. Nobody had taken back either sentence. Nathan called at 8:12. "How's your chest?" "Slightly toasted." "Any dizziness?" "No." "Shortness of breath?" "Only when people ask too many medical questions." He stopped. "Sorry." "You're allowed to ask. I'm trying to figure out how many questions are interest and how many are control. That makes 2 of us." He laughed softly. "Did you see my note?" "Yes." He waited. I added something. "What?" "You'll see next time." I did not photograph it for him. He did not ask me to. Claire came by that afternoon with tomato soup. She rang the bell and remained on the porch until I invited her in. "I made this," she said, then corrected herself. "I opened 2 cans and added basil. Honesty has ruined this family's cooking reputation. We're rebuilding from rosemary." She warmed the soup while I sat at the kitchen table. The reddish patch on my chest had darkened into a shape, like an accusation. I kept touching the neckline of my blouse to make sure it was covered. Does it hurt? Claire asked. Only enough to improve my personality. That sounds serious. She sat across from me. Nathan said you let him stay yesterday, until medication time. He told me. Are you angry? No. Relieved? She considered that, cautiously. The soup steamed between us. He used to come here every time we fought, she said. Even when he didn't physically come, he called you. Then he returned with an argument polished by someone who already loved him. I thought I was helping. I know. Sometimes you were wrong. I know that too. She smiled faintly. We're going to keep seeing the counselor. Good. He hates it. Even better. Last week, she asked him to describe a mistake without explaining why he made it. He sat silent for almost 2 minutes. That may be a family record. Claire laughed. When she left, she packed the remaining soup into 2 containers, one for me and one for herself. She did not assume I wanted all of it. I did not urge her to take more. We were learning through food because direct communication had nearly killed us. My heart kept its restored rhythm. At rehabilitation, the green line on the monitor became almost boring. I walked faster. The thoughtful snail retired. The technician added light hand weights, which I resented personally. Angela reduced her visits again. You no longer need me to supervise toast, she said. I'll miss your confidence in my appliances. You'll manage. On her last day, we walked to the park. The geese had moved elsewhere, presumably after exhausting the neighborhood's resources. Angela sat beside me on a bench overlooking the pond. You did good work, she said. You did most of it. No. I watched. You also rescued a sock from behind the dryer. Heroism comes in many forms. I paid her final invoice from what remained in the travel account. The balance would not have covered one night at the beach house Claire had found. I closed the account. The vacation did not reappear. Nobody suggested that I had recovered enough to pay for it after all. Nathan and Claire planned a 4-day trip they could afford themselves. They chose a smaller rental farther from the water. Do you want to come? Nathan asked. No. His face fell. Then I added, but thank you for asking. I did not want to spend 4 days testing whether our new habits survived shared towels and seafood bills. More importantly, I had made plans of my own. Leona and I were taking the train to Chicago for 2 nights to see a play. Bonnie was coming if she could locate someone willing to share a hotel room with her snoring. Nathan accepted my answer. The Sunday calls continued. Some were warm. Some felt like 2 strangers attempting a customer service survey. One morning, Nathan said, We're having dinner with friends tonight, so we can't come by. I had not invited them. The old ache rose anyway. I didn't ask you to come, I said. I know. I thought you might expect it. I did. He went quiet. That doesn't mean you have to. Another silence. Are you mad? He asked. A little. Should I cancel? No. What am I supposed to do with you being mad? Let me be mad. He laughed, uncertain at first, and then genuinely, I can do that. Have a nice dinner. We will. After the call, I stood in the kitchen feeling disappointed and oddly successful. I made 1 grilled cheese sandwich instead of enough soup for 3 people who had not promised to come. Later, I called Leona and asked whether she wanted to walk. We went to the park and insulted the geese. Nathan found the note 3 weeks after the cardio version. He had come to replace the porch bulb's companion fixture, which had begun flickering. I could have hired someone. I could also ask my son to do one specific thing without turning it into a lifetime appointment. He changed the fixture while I held the ladder. You shouldn't be under me, he said. You shouldn't fall. That's not a plan. It's worked so far. When we finished, he came inside for coffee. The note remained near the fruit bowl, held down by the stainless steel travel mug he had given me before surgery. He picked it up. Family is what answers, he read. It sounded better than, family is what doesn't complain about automated parking validation. He turned the paper over again. Am I answering? More often. Is that enough? For what? To make up for it. There were questions designed to sound humble while asking another person to declare the debt paid. This was one of them. No, I said. His fingers tightened slightly on the note. I don't think one thing makes up for another. You can't sit beside my bed now and change who was there when I woke up. I know. You can only be here now. He nodded. I can do that. You can try. That too. He returned the note to the counter instead of taking it. Spring arrived slowly. Snow withdrew into gray piles. The garage floor dried, revealing the clean rectangle where Nathan's equipment had once stood. I parked in the center for several weeks, simply because I could. Then I bought a narrow wooden workbench. I had no serious need for a workbench. I wanted a place to repot plants, repair loose buttons, and leave half-finished projects without moving them for someone else's belongings. Nathan assembled it after asking where I wanted every shelf. Claire brought 3 small pots of herbs. Leona contributed a tool set so pink and delicate that I accused her of shopping in the toy aisle. It was on sale, she said. It contains a floral hammer. Pain can be beautiful. On Richard's birthday, I invited Nathan and Claire to dinner. I called it dinner, not a memorial. I cooked meatloaf because Richard loved it and Claire did not object. Nathan brought the brewery cup he had taken from the garage. He filled it with Richard's favorite beer and placed it beside the framed photograph on the bookcase. We told stories. Nathan remembered Richard singing the wrong words to every song on the radio. Claire remembered him teaching her to play gin and inventing rules whenever he was losing. I remembered less flattering things, too. His stubbornness, the way he left wet towels on the bed, the terrible months when pain made him cruel. Nobody had to become perfect to remain loved. After dinner, Nathan stood at the sink. "You cooked," he said. "We'll clean." I felt the old impulse to refuse and then resent him for accepting. All right. I sat with Leona's brass bell on the table beside me and watched them wash the dishes. At my 6-month appointment, Dr. Shaw listened to my heart for a long time. Still in normal rhythm, he said. "Are you certain? It has a history of rebellion. Your heart is behaving. Mine or the replacement part? They've reached an agreement." He cleared me from regular rehabilitation and scheduled the next visit for a year later. When I checked out, the receptionist handed me a sheet to verify my information. At the bottom were the contacts: Leona Price, friend, primary; Nathan Hale, son, secondary. "Any changes?" the receptionist asked. I looked at the 2 names. No. Outside, sunlight flashed off the hospital windows. I stood beneath the same awning where I had once buttoned my coat after Nathan's message and wondered which person in my life could be trusted with a telephone. My phone rang. "Nathan?" I answered. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Dr. Shaw says I'm boring." "That's great. I found it insulting. Did they change anything?" "No. Next appointment is in a year." He breathed out. I realized he had been holding his breath. "Claire and I were wondering if you and Leona want to come over Sunday," he said. "Just lunch. I'm making chicken. With Rosemary? I've learned restraint. I'll ask her. If she can't come, you can still come." "I know. And if you have other plans, that's fine." "I know that too." We said goodbye. I walked toward the parking garage, passing people being helped into cars, people carrying folders, people standing alone with phones pressed to their ears. Halfway up the ramp, I stopped. Not because I was out of breath, not because my heart had stumbled. I called Leona first. She answered by saying, "If that doctor wants another piece of you, he can wait. He says I'm fine. Good." "Sunday?" "How did you know?" "Nathan called me." "He already invited you?" 10 minutes ago. I told him he had to ask you himself." I smiled. "Do you want to go?" "Depends on the chicken." After we decided we would risk it, I returned to my car. Before starting the engine, I called Nathan again. He answered on the first ring. "Everything okay?" "Yes." He waited instead of filling the silence. "Leona and I will come Sunday," I said. "Good, and I'm home from the appointment. You're still in the garage." I looked through the windshield at the concrete wall. "How do you know?" "Your voice echoes. So now you're an expert." "I'm trying." I could hear Claire speaking somewhere near him. Nathan answered her, then came back to me. "Call me when you get home," he said. I drove carefully, not because his camping equipment crowded my door, but because some habits were worth keeping. At home, I parked in the middle of my empty space. The workbench stood against the wall with Claire's herbs lined beneath the window. I carried my hospital folder inside and placed it in the drawer where it belonged. Then I called my son. He answered.